The story begins in an abandoned factory where a gang had tied Xiaoyong above a cage full of zombies. The gang leader said all his friends were dead and there was no reason for him to stay alive. To Xiaoyong, however, none of it was his fault but hers, and he thought with hatred that the woman deserved a horrible death. She, meanwhile, clung to a large man, mocking him and saying he was threatening her again, while also claiming they could torture him as much as they wanted, even thanking him for the supplies he had stored in the base they had raided, since those supplies would let them live for a few more months. Soon after, they threw Xiaoyong into the zombie cage. Tied up, he couldn't defend himself and was brutally attacked by the horde. Amid the horror, Xiaoyong swore to himself that if he had another chance, he would kill Qijing no matter what it cost. Suddenly, he woke up with a start, sweating on his couch at home. It had only been a nightmare. At that moment, Qijing appeared, demanding to know why her name still wasn't on the property deed, implying he didn't really love her. Xiaoyong was confused, trying to understand what was happening, horrified to realize he was back before the apocalypse. He remembered that grim future very well. During the nightmare, Qijing had deceived him, pretending to be desperate to gain his trust and then betraying him, letting enemies invade his base. Because of her, he had lost everything, ended up on the streets, and had to survive amid the zombie apocalypse. When the world collapsed, he met real friends he survived with, but he never forgot Qijing's betrayal. Now, back in the past, he saw Qijing still complaining, wanting her share of the property. Xiaoyong thought with contempt that she was the same despicable person in any version of the future. He decided he couldn't act impulsively this time. Qijing gave him an ultimatum of 1 week to sort everything out, but he simply pushed her out of the apartment, promising he would take care of it. Then he slammed the door in her face. Outside, Qijing couldn't believe what had just happened. She wondered why he was treating her like that, since she was sure she had him completely under control like a servant. But now Xiaoyong was fully aware of who she was and what would happen in the future. Looking at the clock, Xiaoyong realized there was only 1 month left until the global catastrophe that would turn everything into a nightmare. He decided he would start preparing immediately. However, something unexpected appeared before him, a system window, like in a game. He realized the apocalypse system had been activated. The system listed tasks he needed to complete as quickly as possible, the first of which was preparation for the apocalypse. For that, he would need to acquire land and stock enough resources to survive for a year. The reward for this initial mission would be 10 points, which could be exchanged for items in the system shop. Exploring the shop, Xiaoyong saw that for 20 points he could buy a physical enhancement potion, for 2 points a level 1 survival kit, and for 10 points a level 1 protagonist box. He could hardly believe what he was seeing but was determined to take advantage of this chance. He also reflected on his life before the apocalypse, which had been wasteful and irresponsible. He knew that in just a month the zombies would appear and that he had little time to act. He decided to allow himself one last luxury and went out to eat at an expensive restaurant. He ordered sophisticated dishes he had never tried before, savoring everything with pleasure and devouring the meal as if it were the last time he could live like a normal person. While eating, he received a call on his cell phone. It was Shuya, Qijing's friend and his supposed girlfriend. Xiaoyong immediately guessed Qijing had been whining to her. Answering the call, he heard Shuya screaming and demanding an explanation for why Qijing's name wasn't on the property, saying it was just a test. He had failed and ordering him to transfer $1 million to Qijing's account and to get on his knees to apologize or get ready for the breakup. Xiaoyong just thought how ridiculous it all was and hung up on her. He knew he didn't have time to waste on them and needed to focus on the mission ahead. His first priority was to acquire a piece of land where he could build a secure fortress against zombies and other humans. Later, he went to a real estate agency to deal with it. When he got there, the receptionist asked if he wanted to buy or rent a house, but Xiaoyong replied it was neither. The manager, noticing the way he was dressed, called the receptionist inside, telling her to go restock products, saying she hadn't learned anything in the last few days. He claimed Xiaoyong wasn't a real customer because he was wearing simple clothes and that she was wasting time. The manager mocked that with Xiaoyong's status he wouldn't even be able to rent a bathroom and promised he would eat feces if Xiaoyong actually had money to buy a house. Xiaoyong remained calm, saying he would give him something nice and fresh to eat later. Then he explained he wasn't there to rent, sell, or buy a normal house but to buy land. When he showed his black card, everyone was shocked by his buying power. The receptionist quickly returned to help him, asking him to follow her for a detailed presentation of the available land plots. Meanwhile, the manager insisted Xiaoyong just wanted to show off, doubting he really had money. Even so, she showed him a catalog with various land options, highlighting locations, features, strengths, and weaknesses so he could carefully choose where to start preparing to survive the apocalypse. Xiaoyong said he didn't need further explanations and asked the agent to just list all the land options that matched what he wanted. He specified that he needed land near mountains and water, preferably with a river, with convenient transportation and good enough even to build a factory. Manager Zhu interrupted the agent, saying those requirements matched exactly with the plots in the Eastern District, but the woman argued that was impossible because there were only unfinished, abandoned factories there with no apparent solution, making it impossible to sell them to any serious customer. Manager Zhu went back to belittling Xiaoyong, saying he was just making trouble with absurd demands and had no intention of buying anything. But Xiaoyong, serious, asked if the Eastern District really met the requirements. The agent confirmed it, further explaining that all the constructions there were unfinished factories with unresolved structures. Xiaoyong carefully analyzed everything and realized that, in fact, that place was perfect for him. The location was excellent, easy to defend, and hard to invade. Besides, having a factory already started meant saving a lot of money, since he would only need to finish the construction instead of building everything from scratch. Decided, he said he would take that land and asked if he could sign the contract and pay immediately. The agent, a bit confused, said yes, of course, but was startled when she realized he was serious about buying an unfinished factory. Meanwhile, Manager Zhu laughed, saying it was impossible because the deposit amount was extremely high. He didn't believe Xiaoyong had that kind of money. Xiaoyong made it clear he was in a hurry to sign the contract and even commented that he needed to leave soon because there was someone waiting to eat something nice and fresh. Right after, Manager Zhu started to panic because Xiaoyong had really paid the 30 million required for the land. Everyone at the agency began pressuring Manager Zhu to keep his promise to eat feces if Xiaoyong had the money, and they even started recording the scene while he was desperate. Xiaoyong, for his part, felt relieved to have completed the first requirement of his mission, securing territory to prepare for the apocalypse. Even though he reflected that he had spent a lot of money, he knew he needed to get more to stock supplies. Meanwhile, Xu Shang showed up at the agency and saw the commotion, asking what was happening. When he entered, he noticed everyone was actually forcing Manager Zhu to fulfill the humiliating promise, something he found bizarre. On the other side of the city, Qijing was at home, busy with her useless things, until she received a call from Xu Shang himself. He asked if she knew that Xiaoyong had gone to the agency to buy a piece of land. She was in shock and wanted to know how he had gotten so much money. Xu Shang explained that he had deposited 30 million, probably using the money he had saved for their engagement. Qijing was furious, convinced that he had used her money to buy the land. Xu Shang tried to calm her down, suggesting she go talk to Xiaoyong to understand the situation, but she refused, saying he was rebelling against her and that she would expose him on the internet that very day. Meanwhile, Xiaoyong was already at home, calmly thinking about the next steps. He knew he needed more money to buy all the supplies necessary to survive for a year. Suddenly, he heard loud, furious knocks on the door. It was Qijing and Shuya, her friend. Qijing demanded an explanation, asking how he had dared to spend her money to buy that land. Xiaoyong, irritated, corrected her, saying the money was his, not hers, and that he wouldn't spend another cent on her. He even mocked that she could ask Xu Shang for help since they were so close. Qijing was confused, wondering how he knew about their affair, while Shuya tried to smooth things over, saying it must be a misunderstanding. Xiaoyong made it clear that there was no misunderstanding at all, that he and Qijing had never really been a couple, and that nothing of his had ever belonged to her. Without giving them any more chance to argue, he shut the door in their faces. In the hallway, Qijing stood in shock, trying to understand how he could know about her secret relationship with Xu Shang as she took the elevator down. Shuya, trying to console her friend, asked if it was true she was seeing Xu Shang. Qijing confirmed, saying they had already met several times. Shuya, however, was not such a good friend. She silently thought that this fight between Xiaoyong and Qijing was the perfect opportunity to get closer to him. She planned to take advantage of the situation to win over Xiaoyong, his money, and even the land he had bought. Later, Xiaoyong was already at his new property, checking the plans. He had hired a contractor to finish building the unfinished factory but wanted to turn it into a real fortress. He was talking with the engineer about the list of renovations, demanding reinforced walls, guard towers, barbed wire, thicker blast-resistant steel doors, and bulletproof glass. The engineer, curious, asked why he wanted all of that. Xiaoyong got straight to the point, saying not to ask too many questions. He only wanted to know if the project could be ready in a month. The engineer replied that it was practically impossible without much more money and extra labor. Xiaoyong, firm, said he knew they could find a way and that he was willing to pay more to speed up the process. The engineer explained that for that, they would need at least another 20 million, with 5 million paid up front. Xiaoyong agreed, saying he would make the transfer that same day and guaranteeing that he wouldn't fail to pay. He even said that if he couldn't pay, the contractor could keep the land as compensation. While closing the deal, Shuya suddenly appeared at the construction site, throwing herself at Xiaoyong and pretending to be worried. Inside, he sighed, realizing he now had another parasite to get rid of amid his plans to survive the apocalypse. Shuya was trying to seduce Xiaoyong, betraying her friend to get close to him and take his property. Xiaoyong asked what she was doing there, while Jing looked around, impressed by the land, and said the place was really beautiful, asking if he planned to build a villa there. Xiaoyong, serious, pushed Jing aside and made it clear that it was none of her business. Jing wondered why he was acting so strange that day, since normally just touching him would make him blush, but now he was rejecting her without hesitation. Xiaoyong simply ignored her and went to help the workers on the site, while Shuya thought to herself that she couldn't lose that golden opportunity. For her, Jing had already missed her chance. Now, she needed to find a way to keep that land for herself. Later, Xiaoyong returned home. He had secured a bank loan and had already advanced most of the payment to speed up the construction, but he knew he still needed a lot more money to buy supplies. That was when he remembered something important. The apocalypse was about to start. He thought he could sell the apartment where he was living to raise more funds, and decided that was exactly what he would do. A little later, someone knocked at the door. It was the old man who lived in the same building. Xiaoyong knew he had money saved up and that he had been trying to buy his apartment for a long time. This old man was always starting trouble to pressure him into selling, complaining about trash left out of place and accusing him of all sorts of things. The old man started picking a fight, saying that Xiaoyong had gone out drinking in clubs the night before. Xiaoyong replied that he must be senile since he had gone to bed early, and even if he had gone out, it was none of his business. He then asked if the old man was doing all that just to buy the apartment. When the old man showed interest, Xiaoyong said he would sell, but with one condition: he would continue living there for 6 more months until his new house was ready, and he wanted 5 million paid up front. He made it clear there would be no deal without those terms. The old man, reluctant, ended up agreeing and signed the contract, warning Xiaoyong not to regret it later. Xiaoyong, meanwhile, ironically thought it was good. The old man would be there waiting for death while he carried out his plans. This way, Xiaoyong managed to raise a total of 8 million, 3 million from the bank loan and 5 million from selling the apartment. With the money in hand, he knew he needed to move to the next stage, buying supplies for an entire year. He also received the system reward for completing the first part of the mission, which was securing the land. Without wasting time, he went to the store to buy as much as he could. He pushed several carts full of items to the checkout, with so many purchases that everyone watched curiously, wondering what he was planning. Some even commented that he probably believed the rumors about the world ending. In the end, he managed to complete that part of the mission and gained another 10 points in the system. He thought that during the apocalypse it would be essential to have increased attributes and that the protagonist box cost exactly 10 points. Without hesitation, he bought the box and received as a reward a level 1 spatial ring. With it, he now had a 500 square meter subspace where he could store anything without worrying about time, since food wouldn't spoil, frozen items wouldn't melt, and everything would stay preserved forever. He considered it the best possible reward. Next, the system showed him the new mission, to secure 10 years worth of supplies with a reward of 20 points. Meanwhile, the store manager Yang Dao showed up asking who was causing trouble. When he saw Xiaoyong, he immediately recognized him, and Xiaoyong also remembered him. They had gone to high school together. Yang Dao had been part of a gang that bullied others, and they had fought many times. Xiaoyong thought he hadn't backed down back then and wouldn't now. Yang Tao ordered Xiaoyong to put everything back on the shelves, saying he would be arrested if he kept causing problems. Xiaoyong asked if he still thought they were in school and said he was there to buy. Yang Tao replied that he doubted he had the money to pay for all that. The cashiers took over an hour scanning all the items, totaling 56,884. Yang Dao demanded payment, and Xiaoyong calmly and confidently swiped his card, proving he really could pay. As Yang Dao started to leave, Xiaoyong called him back, saying he needed to apologize first. Yang Tao tried to refuse, telling him not to take advantage of his goodwill, but the other customers in the store began recording the scene, saying he really had been rude without reason and needed to apologize. Xiaoyong said that if he apologized, he would buy 10 times more. Yang Tao, reluctant, ended up bowing his head and apologizing, while Xiaoyong told him not to be so irresponsible in the future and to never underestimate anyone again. Finally, Yang Tao asked why he was buying so much like that. Xiaoyong simply replied that it was none of his business and that he wanted to build up a big stockpile. Yang Tao, trying to recover, commented that maybe the store wouldn't be enough for that. Xiaoyong asked if he knew any place where he could buy more. Yang Tao said yes and asked if he remembered Shang, explaining that he also dealt in large-scale sales. Later, Yang Tao showed up saying he had found a big supplier for him. Xiaoyong thought Yang Tao was still the same as ever, a true lapdog trying to get his commission. He imagined that Shang Zhe, this new contact, was probably just another criminal, but Xiaoyong didn't care as long as he could stock up. Sometime later, they arrived at the huge warehouse full of goods. Shang Zhe showed up driving recklessly, almost running over Yang Dao himself. Xiaoyong observed the flashy driving style and showy clothes, thinking ironically that he must be a real nice guy, right? Shang Zhe arrived smoking and blowing smoke in their faces, asking Yang Dao if this was the big customer. Yang Tao confirmed and explained that it was Xiaoyong, someone he knew from school. Shang Zhe pretended to remember, blew even more smoke in Xiaoyong's face, and commented that the kid used to be pretty bold back in school. Then he mocked him, asking if the clothes he wore weren't fake brands, saying he hated people who pretended to be rich. Xiaoyong, out of patience, said that maybe that wasn't the right topic for the conversation. He was there to buy, not to argue. But Shang Zhe wouldn't drop it and started fighting with Yang Dao, asking if this was really the big client or if he was just wasting his time. Yang Dao tried to calm things down, saying Xiaoyong really had money to buy. Shang Zhe, experienced in the business, said he could recognize real customers from fakes. Xiaoyong thought to himself that his buyer's aura wasn't working, since even a low-level thug like Shang Zhe couldn't take him seriously. Then Shang Zhe grabbed him by the collar, demanding respect. Xiaoyong, calm, provoked him by saying he was just a pathetic little bottom feeder. Shang Zhe flew into a rage at the insult and pushed Yang Tao aside to have a serious talk with Xiaoyong, threatening him by saying that if he didn't want to buy, he would have problems. Xiaoyong replied that he should first take off that questionable brand jacket and check the balance in his bank account. Shang Zhe was surprised to find out that he had spent over $1 million in a single supermarket trip. Xiaoyong made it clear he wasn't there to play around. He said he could transfer $5 million at once, but wanted real supplies, with a truck to deliver everything to his home. Shang Zhe asked what kind of supplies he wanted. Xiaoyong replied that he needed rice, oil, salt, drinks, and any kind of long-lasting food. Shang Zhe gladly agreed, thinking it was his lucky day. He planned to offload a bunch of near-expired food on Xiaoyong to clear out his stagnant stock. Later, inside the huge warehouse, Shang Zhe offered a 10% discount because of the large purchase, but Xiaoyong carefully inspected everything and noticed that many products were already expired. He made it clear that the price would depend on the quality of the items and was annoyed by the attempt to trick him. Shang Zhe tried to justify himself by offering a 50% discount on the expired products, but Xiaoyong said he wouldn't pay for trash. He wanted to spend the full $5 million on quality goods. Even so, he said he would also take the expired items, but payment for those would come the following month. Shang Zhe grew suspicious and asked why he wanted the expired items. Xiaoyong simply said that was none of his business, and whispered that food close to expiring, or even expired, would be extremely valuable in a few days. When Shang Zhe insisted on knowing what he meant by that, Xiaoyong told him to stop asking questions, saying he would send the delivery address and that Shang Zhe should just handle his part. Meanwhile, Xiaoyong got another business call, feeling more and more like an important man. He told Shang Zhe to handle everything because he had other matters to take care of. As soon as he left, Yang Dao commented to Shang Zhe that he had been an enormous client. Shang Zhe agreed but admitted he didn't understand how Xiaoyong was doing so well in life. At another time, Xiaoyong was closing another deal using the same house he had already sold to the pushy old man. He found a new buyer willing to pay a $400,000 deposit even knowing he could only move in 3 months later. While signing the contract, Xiaoyong thought to himself how desperate the old man was and asked him directly. The man explained that he urgently needed a house because his granddaughter was transferring schools. The location was perfect for them, and he pleaded not to raise the price. Xiaoyong reassured him that he wouldn't, even making it clear that he could if he wanted to. They signed the contract, and the old man thanked him, promising not to bother him anymore. Xiaoyong thought the man was honestly too kind-hearted, with a soft nature that wouldn't last in the apocalypse. Before the old man left, Xiaoyong even asked for his current address. Days later, he was handling his business while the renovation of the abandoned factory was nearly finished. He checked on the progress with the engineer, who explained it was about 70 to 80% complete. The doors were now fully reinforced and the warehouse was clean and spacious. Xiaoyong was satisfied, saying it was great, and called Sheng Jed to let him know he could already bring the supplies. Later, several trucks were unloading goods in the large factory warehouse. Many workers helped organize everything because Xiaoyong demanded speed to ensure it was all ready before the apocalypse started. The apocalypse was about to begin soon, and Xiaoyong was organizing the people, dividing the supplies into categories like food, vegetables, fish, and meat. The work took the whole day and only finished late in the afternoon. When everything was ready, Xiaoyong realized he had finally completed his mission to gather supplies for 10 years. While checking the system store, he noticed there was a new, different box there. Besides the level 1 box for the apocalypse farmer, there was now also a box called Skill Awakening. He felt very lucky to get it before the apocalypse began. Without hesitation, he bought the Awakening box and obtained the Mind's Eye Level 1, a skill that allowed him to detect people's hostility toward him. Xiaoyong considered it extremely useful for the apocalypse, since now he could know who to trust and who not to trust. Soon after, a new mission appeared for him called Armed to the Teeth, which required him to arm himself as much as possible. The promised reward was another 10 points and a random item. For Xiaoyong, it was perfect because he was already planning to do exactly that. Later that night, he went to the black market. He found it curious how people acted there, as if it were any normal market. No one wore a hood or tried to hide their face, even with people selling drugs and weapons in plain sight. Among the customers was Xiaoyong again, this time negotiating a jade bracelet to trick Qijing into thinking it was genuine, even though it was probably smuggled, stolen, or fake. Xiaoyong, who was buying weapons, watched with disdain, thinking that even he used to do shady deals in the past. He thought it was a shame Qijing might fall for a trick like that. Staying focused on his goal, Xiaoyong finally found what he wanted, weapons. He examined the knives displayed at the small shop, but asked the seller if there wasn't anything heavier. In response, the man tossed him only a knife-sharpening stone, saying if he wanted something heavier, he should sharpen it himself. Xiaoyong wasn't satisfied and insisted he needed something more powerful. The seller, suspicious, asked if he was there to cause trouble. At that moment, Xiaoyong transferred 200,000 via the shop's QR code, saying he was really there to buy. The seller then had another man watch the shop and took Xiaoyong to a more private area. There, he showed him a simple revolver, offering it for 2,000, saying the ammunition was cheap. But Xiaoyong refused, explaining it was no good for him. He wanted a real weapon. He explained that the 200,000 payment was just a down payment, about 10% of the total amount he planned to spend. He wanted to buy 2 million worth of weapons and ammunition. The seller, surprised and cautious, asked what he did for work. Xiaoyong replied that he usually didn't handle trivial matters himself and that his subordinates did it, but now he was going through changes and didn't want the seller asking any more questions. The seller agreed and asked for a moment. He locked the door, closed the windows, and said that Xiaoyong had found the right man for that kind of deal. Whispering, he asked him to write a list of what he wanted. He also gave him an address and told him to go there at midnight the following day to complete the transaction, bringing all the money. Later, when leaving the shop, Xiaoyong was treated with a lot of respect by the seller. He then found himself back in the black market to negotiate another item and began reflecting on the people he dealt with. He noticed there were always familiar faces in the black market, people trading everything from weapons to fake jewelry. He knew many bought those fake jewels just to trick others like Qijing. Xiaoyong took the opportunity to test his mind's eye. He checked the seller and saw he was calm and pleased with the sale. But when he looked at another buyer staring at him arrogantly, he clearly saw the hostility icon over his head. Xiaoyong found the ability extremely useful since now he knew who posed a threat. Watching the fake jewelry deal, Xiaoyong thought it was truly despicable how many people were willing to cheat others without guilt. The shopkeeper noticed the tense atmosphere and asked if he knew that customer. Xiaoyong said yes, that he was more like an enemy to him. The seller promised to teach the guy a lesson. Xiaoyong, however, asked them not to kill him because he had plans for him. After that, the shop's crew went after the hostile buyer, who panicked and tried to talk his way out of it. In the end, he was thrown out of the black market, bruised and covered in boot marks, grumbling that it was all Xiaoyong's fault and that one day he would get revenge. 2 days later, at Xiaoyong's base, he finally received his weapons. The mission Armed to the Teeth was completed, earning him 10 more points in the system for a total of 20 points. He now had pistols, submachine guns, lots of ammunition, and even received an extra reward, a level 2 physical enhancement potion. Xiaoyang was very excited about this, since the potion had twice the effect of those available in the store. Without hesitation, he used it on himself. Checking his system, he knew a normal adult man had around 5 physique points. With 2 more points, his strength increased by 40%. To improve even further, he bought another physical enhancement potion, this time a level 1. That way he reached 8 physique points, giving him 60% more strength than an average person. He decided to test it. He grabbed a steel bar and, with a single kick, not only bent it but also drove it into the wall. Xiaoyang thought with satisfaction that with this strength he wouldn't lose to anyone in a fight nor fear zombies. Since the weapons didn't take up much space, he stored them all in his spatial ring. He reflected that the day after tomorrow would be the first day of the apocalypse and mentally reviewed what else he needed to do. That was when he remembered an old man who had always been kind to him. Even after everything he had been through, knowing how treacherous humans could be, Xiaoyang couldn't ignore someone like that. He decided to send some essential supplies to give him a better chance of surviving. It was a way to repay the favor for having been funded by him. The next morning, Xiaoyang went to the old man's house. He was grateful for having GPS because finding that little house had been pretty hard. Climbing the stairs, Xiaoyang thought about how the old man really wasn't in good health, which was why he was so eager to move. Before even knocking, he reflected that it would be better to just leave the supplies outside, since he didn't want to explain how he would take them out of the spatial ring afterward. So he carefully removed all the boxes from the ring and set them on the ground. When the old man answered the door, he had the expression of someone expecting to be asked for rent but was surprised to see Xiaoyang surrounded by so many boxes. Confused, he wanted to know what all that was. Xiaoyang just said he would explain later and asked to take everything inside quickly before the neighbors saw. After helping carry everything in, the old man remarked that young people really had so much more energy. He himself could no longer carry even a few boxes because of his age. Meanwhile, Xiaoyang assessed the house, noticing that the door seemed pretty sturdy. Then he turned to the old man and said something he considered very important. He explained that he needed to use those supplies wisely, as they would be enough to survive for at least half a year. He warned that starting the next day, the world would completely change. It was at that moment that Xiaoyang noticed a photo in a frame on the dresser. It was the old man with a girl he recognized as Shanshan, his friend from his previous life. Curious, Xiaoyang asked if his granddaughter's name was really Shanshan. The old man confirmed and wanted to know how he knew that, since he didn't remember telling him before. Xiaoyang then asked where she was now. The old man explained that she was studying in his hometown and that as soon as he sorted out the house move, he planned to transfer her to a new school. He also said that the paperwork for that was almost ready. Xiaoyang then remembered his past life. He remembered very clearly how Shanshan had felt extremely guilty, saying her grandfather had died because of her. He knew the old man had risked his life to save her, since at the start of the apocalypse she had been trapped at school. Thinking about this, Xiaoyang promised himself that this time she wouldn't regret anything. He explained to the old man that he could no longer let him move houses and that he wasn't changing his mind about selling the property. He said that starting the next day, the world would become a true hell and that it wouldn't matter whether it was that house, his own, or even the school, because none of it would hold any value anymore. What mattered now was to go get Shanshan from school immediately. The old man didn't understand and asked why he was saying all that. Not really knowing how to explain, Xiaoyang asked if he knew what life was like in famine-stricken countries, underdeveloped places where everyone suffers. He said the entire world would become like that, with everyone plunged into misery and hunger. To prove he wasn't bluffing, Xiaoyang showed the power of his spatial ring, sucking all the objects in the house back into it. The old man was shocked, asking what kind of magic that was. Xiaoyang then explained that he had supernatural powers and could see the future. He said he wanted him to survive, as well as Shanshan, so he needed to listen and follow his instructions. He asked where Shanshan's school was, and soon after, the two of them were in the car. The old man was still terrified, but went with him to the school. Xiaoyang was in a hurry, knowing everything would start very soon. He asked if the old man knew where his granddaughter's dormitory was, and the man confirmed, saying he would guide him there. Meanwhile, at the entrance of the school, Shanshan was being assaulted. A girl, angry because the boy she liked was interested in Shanshan, slapped her across the face. Shanshan tried to explain that it was all one-sided, that she had already told him she wouldn't be with him, but another girl arrived and kicked her, saying that was just an excuse. The attackers kept insulting her when suddenly Xiaoyang and her grandfather appeared, ordering them to back off, but the group protecting the bullies showed up, armed with knives and baseball bats, making the situation dangerous. Even so, the old man didn't hesitate and charged at them. When one of the boys tried to hit him with the bat, Xiaoyong grabbed the swing and calmly asked if that was how they treated their elders. The delinquents mocked him, thinking they could handle him easily. But Xiaoyong wasn't intimidated. The first attacker was sent flying with a kick. The other two grew more cautious when they realized he was well trained. Even surrounded, with one holding a knife and the other a bat, Xiaoyong stayed calm. He dodged the bat swing easily, noticing his reflexes had improved thanks to the physical enhancement. Grabbing the opponent with the bat, he slammed him violently onto the ground, knocking him out instantly. Then he caught the one with the knife and brought him down, making him hit his head on the floor. The girls who had attacked Shanshan were left in shock. Xiaoyong approached and slapped the group's leader, having no patience for excuses. He then grabbed another girl by the hair and pressed the blade to her neck, but instead of hurting her, he simply cut off a large lock of hair. The girl was furious about it, but Xiaoyong said that one day she'd understand that this cut might even save her life in the future. Afterward, he turned to Shanshan and said they were leaving. She was confused, asking where they were going and who he was. Already in the car, Shanshan protested, saying she couldn't just abandon school. The grandfather tried to explain the way Xiaoyong had explained it to him before, that there would soon be great famine and misery. Shanshan couldn't believe any of it. She told her grandfather he shouldn't fall for scams and reminded him he always fell for these stories. But this time the old man insisted it was real. She still didn't believe it, saying that every time he said it, he insisted it was real. Xiaoyong, for his part, promised himself that this time he would truly protect Shanshan. He explained that it wasn't her grandfather who had fallen for a scam, but that he himself had told him about the famine. When Shanshan asked who he was, he introduced himself and told her just to call him Brother Xia. She thanked him for what he had done, but still thought everything was very strange. She wanted to know what exactly this famine was that he talked about. Xiaoyong explained that using the word famine was just a way to help her grandfather understand. What was really coming was an apocalypse. That left Shanshan terrified. Xiaoyong said it would start very soon, in a matter of seconds. He asked her to check her phone, saying that news and videos would already be appearing about what was happening. When Shanshan opened her phone, the first thing she saw was indeed a video of someone on the subway, looking rabid, biting other people. More videos started popping up, each one more bizarre, showing people losing consciousness and transforming into something like zombies. Xiaoyong then said those were the first signs. He explained with complete seriousness that the next day would be the first day of the apocalypse. Xiaoyong explained to Shanshan and her grandfather that soon a toxic mist would begin to appear in various provinces, including Province B. This mist would infect all living beings, causing people to slowly mutate and turn into zombies. The part of the population not infected directly would end up being eaten by those who were, and upon dying, would also turn into zombies. He told Shanshan that, being young, she probably knew what zombies were. She answered that yes, but she'd only seen them in movies and games. Xiaoyong then made it clear that the world would completely change. What she believed was just fiction would soon appear right before her own eyes. As they talked, traffic came to a complete stop. They were stuck in a massive jam, with the emergency lane blocked by barricades. Xiaoyong grew serious, realizing that at this rate they could be caught by zombies if a horde appeared. He knew they only had a few days before society totally collapsed, and that if that happened there, they'd be trapped in the traffic. Suddenly, a car sideswiped Xiaoyong's vehicle, forcing its way through the emergency lane. He was annoyed to see the driver hadn't even signaled and was trying to cut through the traffic. Deciding not to let it slide, Xiaoyong deliberately blocked the other car's path, weaving to block it. The drivers began shouting and cursing at each other, but both still ended up stuck in the traffic jam. After almost an hour, they managed to get out of there, but Shanshan warned that the same black car was coming back, trying to overtake them again. Her grandfather asked Xiaoyong not to retaliate, saying it wasn't worth stooping to that person's level. But Xiaoyong replied that in normal times he might let it go, but with the apocalypse starting the next day, he wouldn't tolerate it. He then accelerated and rammed the other car, forcing it off the road and into the shoulder. The other driver got out furious, with his car wrecked, trying to write down Xiaoyong's license plate, but he had already disappeared. The man in a suit still shouted that he had messed with the wrong person. Later that night, after the long traffic jam, they finally arrived at Xiaoyong's base. Shanshan and her grandfather were impressed by the size of the place. Xiaoyong told them they should rest, because the next day they would have a lot to do. The next morning, Xiaoyong was having coffee and watching the view while Shanshan stretched, commenting that she hadn't slept so well in a long time and that it was nice not having to go to school. Xiaoyong said that since she was up, they should inspect the fortress. He explained that the walls weren't just concrete, but also armored and reinforced. The gate was made of pure steel, over 3 centimeters thick, and was digitally controlled to prevent any invasion. He made it clear from the start that without permission, no one but the 3 of them would be able to enter. Shanshan then asked what they would do if they found survivors asking for help. Xiaoyong asked her to come with him so he could explain better. As they walked outside, he told her that during the apocalypse, the human heart would become unpredictable. He said that when society collapsed, people's true nature would emerge, revealing selfishness and cruelty. He showed her an area outside the fortress, explaining that he had built a temporary shelter for survivors. They could stay there, but under no circumstances would they be allowed into the main fortress. He then took them to the food storage, detailing the sections where different kinds of supplies were kept. Before entering the storage, Xiaoyong used his mind's eye to check if he could trust them both. He saw that they truly trusted him. Then, using his spatial ring, he took out crates full of weapons and explained that armament was essential in the apocalypse. It was vital to keep everything under control to prevent weapons from falling into the wrong hands. The grandfather immediately agreed with him. Suddenly, a new mission appeared in Xiaoyong's system. The condition to activate it had been meeting Shanshan, and now it triggered a series of tasks called Old Companions. The next mission was to rescue his former ally, Zhangqi, and he would receive 20 points as a reward. A large arrow appeared in the system indicating Zhangqi's exact location at that moment. Xiaoyong told the 2 of them that he needed to leave immediately to recruit 1 more person for the fortress, but asked them to remember one thing clearly: no one should enter the fortress without permission, and the weapons had to remain under strict control. Meanwhile, in a karaoke bar, Zhangqi was having fun with some friends, singing and drinking. At one point, he went out with a friend to the bathroom and to get more drinks. In the corridor, a girl accidentally bumped into him. Even though it was her fault, Zhangqi apologized, but the man with her got angry and pushed him, telling him to watch where he was going. Zhangqi's friend asked if he was okay and commented that the guy seemed crazy, wanting to fight over nothing. The aggressive man, furious, threatened the friend too, grabbing him by the collar. That was when a karaoke employee appeared to break up the fight, asking them to stop. The aggressive man turned to the employee, asking if he was disrespecting him by touching him. The employee stayed calm and asked them to leave, promising to handle everything with the angry customer. Meanwhile, Zhangqi and his friend used the chance to slip away quickly. When they got back to the room, their friends asked what had happened. The friend explained they had almost gotten into a fight in the hallway. Zhangqi tried to downplay it, saying it was nothing and that it was already over, suggesting they keep enjoying the night. But it wasn't really over. A little later, the aggressive man returned, this time bringing his entire gang and even the employee who had tried to break up the fight, now visibly beaten. They kicked in the door of the room where Zhangqi and his friends were, and the gang leader pointed at them, saying they would settle things a different way now. They were all subdued right. One of Zhangqi's friends asked why they were doing this, but the gang leader didn't want to talk and smashed a whiskey bottle over his head, knocking him down. Zhangqi screamed for his friend, named Chang, trying to help him. Meanwhile, outside, Xiaoyong arrived at the karaoke bar. He thought it was about what he expected from a high school student, thinking that the world was about to end and the bastard was there singing and having fun. Inside the room, after the bottle attack, the aggressor turned to the woman with him and asked if she felt better. She said no, explaining that it hadn't been that friend who bumped into her, but Zhangqi. He turned to Zhangqi, confirming it with her and pointing at him. Chang tried to get up to defend his friend but was hit on the head again and fell badly hurt. That made Zhangqi lose control completely, and he started trading punches with the gang members. Another of their friends was so terrified he just curled up in a corner, unable to react. Meanwhile, the karaoke employee began feeling sick, showing strange symptoms. During the fight, he ended up turning into a zombie. His first target was one of the gang members, whom he bit savagely on the neck. That caused immediate panic. He then bit someone else, spreading even more chaos. Everyone was terrified until someone strong enough managed to restrain the zombie. It was Xiaoyong, who threw the creature against the room's big screen and ordered everyone to stop immediately. People were in shock seeing him hold the creature with just one hand. The gang leader, stunned, asked who the hell he was. Xiaoyong turned to Zhangqi and wanted to know if he had been bitten. Zhangqi, confused, said no and that he didn't even know him, but Xiaoyong just told him to follow and said he would explain everything later. The gang leader tried to regain control and said it wasn't over yet, but the first guy who had been bitten was already dizzy, saying his head was spinning. Xiaoyong watched carefully and saw he was about to turn. The bite had been on the neck, and judging by the look of it, he was already infected. Without hesitating, Xiaoyong grabbed the man and threw him into a nearby room, locking the door. He figured that at least the zombies didn't know how to open doors yet. Then he looked at Zhang-Chi and asked who he wanted taken down there. Zhang-Chi, still confused, asked if they really knew each other. But before he could really answer, one of the gang members lunged at Xiaoyong. He grabbed the guy and slammed his face against a glass table. Another infected tried to attack him too, but Xiaoyong knocked him out with a single punch. The others were terrified, seeing their friend convulsing on the floor after the blow. Xiaoyong calmly asked if anyone else wanted to keep fighting. No one answered. Then he told Zhang-Chi that they needed to get out of there as soon as possible. Later, Zhang-Chi and his friends hurried out of the room. The gang tried to do the same, but Xiaoyong blocked the door, saying they had almost killed a friend of his. Without moving aside, he grabbed the gang leader and threw him back into the room, locking the door with him and the zombie inside. Outside, they could still hear screams coming from the locked room. One of the employees showed up asking what was going on. Xiaoyong told him not to open that door under any circumstances, no matter what happened, and ordered him to call the police, warning there were people inside infected with rabies. The frightened employee asked what he meant by rabies, but said he would call the police. Meanwhile, Xiaoyong was already leaving with the group, telling them not to come back there again. Another employee arrived asking what was so serious. The first one explained there were people infected with rabies locked inside. The two of them ran to the security room to check the cameras and were horrified to see what was happening. Inside the room, the zombies were devouring each other. The head of security immediately ordered them to call the police. Xiaoyong, meanwhile, was already far away with the group. He knew that place was no longer safe. In the car, Zhang-Chi thanked Xiaoyong deeply for saving them but asked who he was. Xiaoyong simply replied that he was someone hired to protect him and that he didn't need to know who had hired him. One of Zhang-Chi's friends asked about that rabies he had mentioned, saying that online they claimed it didn't exist. Xiaoyong shot back, asking if what they'd seen in there was some kind of illusion. Another asked if there was any cure or medicine for it. Xiaoyong explained there wasn't, that this disaster had no cure and would only get worse over time. As the car drove through the streets, they saw more infected people attacking others, biting and spreading chaos. Xiaoyong warned them that they would soon lose all control of the situation, and if they wanted to survive, they would have to follow his orders without question. At that moment, the system appeared for Xiaoyong, informing him he had completed the mission to rescue his old companion. Volume 1 was complete, and he gained 20 points in the system. Xiaoyong then thought about checking the system shop. There were 3 main boxes: the Level 1 Post-Apocalyptic Farmer box, the Level 1 Supply box, and the Level 1 Weapons box, all costing 2 points each. He wondered if he should buy immediately or refresh the store manually, figuring that either way those boxes would be very useful to him. When he got back to the fortress, he would focus on that. For now, he had a much bigger problem. He didn't know who he could trust. He remembered well that in his previous life, one of Zhang-Chi's friends had betrayed him. At the start of the apocalypse, the entire dorm where Xiaoyong had lived was destroyed. Everyone died because one of his friends betrayed the whole group. Only Zhang survived. But to this day, Xiaoyong didn't know which of the 3 friends was the traitor. Meanwhile, Jing was talking with Shusheng. She was terrified, asking about the supplies he had promised to deliver. Outside was complete chaos, and she didn't even have the courage to step into a supermarket. Shusheng said he would send the missing supplies soon, claiming he was handling other things, but suddenly someone knocked at the door and she was badly startled. Peeking through the peephole, she was relieved to see it was just Shuya. She commented that she almost had a heart attack from the fright. Shuya then told her that the old man from the first floor had been taken away that morning with the police and an ambulance showing up to help him. Jing concluded that was why the building had been so chaotic earlier. Even so, Shuya said this infection didn't seem as scary as people claimed. The two of them went back to talking about supplies, and Jing didn't have high hopes for Shusheng. Shuya explained that she had already warned he wasn't trustworthy, and mentioned that Xiaoyong had a huge food stockpile that could make him rich during the pandemic. Jing was surprised and asked how she knew that. Shuya said she had been watching Xiaoyong lately and had seen trucks full of supplies being unloaded for him. Jing suspected Xiaoyong knew about the pandemic before everyone else. Shuya insisted they needed to deal with this quickly, because once he started profiting, they would need to secure a share for themselves. Meanwhile, Xiaoyong had arrived at the base with everyone else. Junk was impressed by the size of the fortress, and Xiaoyong commented that was everyone's usual reaction. Chanshan and her grandfather said they were happy to finally be back and asked if he was okay. He replied that everything was fine with Zhang and Zhang, and that he would introduce the new members. The most important among them was Zhang and his friends. They were all introduced and Chanshan welcomed them. Shaw asked if Sheng could show them the fortress and explain the rules. Sheng readily agreed. However, the last of the newcomers, who had been more isolated in the corner, asked if they could get armed to help with defense. Xiaoyong just shot him a hard look. The heavier-set friend warned him it was too soon to ask for weapons since they first needed to earn trust. Xiaoyong reassured them that in a few days they would also have weapons, but noticed that Chong was badly injured and ordered him to be taken immediately to the infirmary. Later, Zhang and his friends were taking a shower, feeling much better. During their conversation, Yiming questioned why their friend had given up asking for weapons. He said that in the situation they were in, they had the right to protect themselves. Another friend argued that wouldn't be fair since it was Xiaoyong who had saved them. Yiming insisted that Man was lying because he had never said who hired him and had even acted strangely toward Chong. Xiaoyong said he needed to monitor Chong's condition but pointed out that the infirmary was safer than a prison. Even so, they distrusted what Xiaoyong might do with their injured friend. Yiming even suggested darkly that he might sell Chong's organs and said they needed to act first. Another friend asked if they really planned to repay that help with betrayal. Yiming coldly replied that it was better to betray the world than be betrayed by it. He said he intended to take the fortress and seize control since besides them and Xiaoyong, there was only a little girl and an old man. He even made a vulgar comment about the girl, which created a heavy atmosphere in the group. Trying to ease the tension, he said he was just joking, but Zhang asked them to stop that. Even in an apocalypse, it wasn't a reason to turn into that kind of people. As they were leaving, Yiming was thinking to himself that his friends were far too naive. For him, in a chaotic world like that, you had to adapt and do whatever was necessary to survive. Later, Xiaoyong held a meeting with Sheng and Zhang. Sheng reported that Zhang and his friends were settled in. Chong was still in serious condition but was in the infirmary, being monitored with doors and windows locked as Zhang had suggested. Xiaoyong thanked him for the good work and told them to get some rest. But before they left, he warned them to keep an eye on Zhang's friends, as he was sure one of them would end up rebelling. Afterward, in the storage area, Xiaoyong was checking his system. Not wanting to waste resources, he decided to buy 3 boxes, 1 level 1 Apocalypse Farmer box, 1 level 1 Supplies box, and 1 level 1 Weapons box. In the first, he got 50 corn seeds. In the Supplies box, he obtained 200 kilos of sausage, 100 kilos of preserved pork with vegetables, and 50 boxes of noodles. In the Weapons box, he received 100 rounds of 9mm ammunition. He considered these rewards very good, especially since money no longer had any value. Using system points to secure resources was the best strategy, and it would completely change his life in that new reality. The next morning, some suspicious people approached Xiaoyong's fortress. Among them was the man he had argued with in traffic a few days earlier. He was leading his gang to destroy the fortress gate. Even after pounding on it for a long time, they couldn't break it down because it was made of solid steel. One of the men remarked in disbelief who would even have a door like that at home. When they failed, they decided to use heavy equipment and began throwing Molotov cocktails at the building, starting a large fire. Everyone ran outside to help put out the flames using buckets of water, since the water tank was running low. Meanwhile, Xiaoyong didn't help fight the fire. Instead, he took his gun and climbed up to the watchtower. When he got to the top, Sheng recognized the man leading the attack. It was the same guy who had picked a fight with Xiaoyong in traffic days before. The gang noticed they were being watched from above, and the man shouted for Xiaoyong to come down and settle things like a man. But Xiaoyong told them they had 5 minutes to clear out. The gang showed no fear. At that moment, a new mission appeared in Xiaoyong's system, ordering him to eliminate the threat outside his base in exchange for 10 reward points. Sheng suggested firing a warning shot to scare them off, but Xiaoyong rejected the idea. He argued that they were in the middle of an apocalypse, and anyone who attacked someone else's base deserved real bullets. His first shot blew off the gang leader's arm. Xiaoyong remarked calmly that unfortunately he had missed the vital spot and his skills were a little rusty. He said he would use the bandits for target practice. The gang panicked and tried to run back to their cars to escape, but Xiaoyong shot them down one by one with precise hits to the chest, neck, and head. Even those who made it into the car didn't get far, as he also fired at the vehicle. He used almost all his ammo to make sure no one escaped. Sheng noticed that Xiaoyong had impressive skill in reloading and shooting with precision. It made him suspect that Xiaoyong might have served in the military. Sheng became even more curious about the young man's past before the apocalypse. When it was all over, the attackers were dead. Xiaoyong ordered Sheng to mobilize everyone to clean up the area, but then he reconsidered. He thought it was only the beginning of the apocalypse. Maybe it would be better to leave the bodies there so they would turn into zombies and serve as training in the future. At that same time, Chong was traveling along the road with Kui Jing and Shuya. Their next stop was Xiaoyang's fortress. In the car, Jing was already suspicious of Shuya's intentions, knowing she wanted to take advantage of the situation and of Shusheng. When the car parked near the fortress, Jing told Shuya to get out, but she refused. Jing insisted she had to get out. Shuya said it was enough just to look at the place from inside the car to recognize it. Even so, Jing ended up literally pulling Shuya out. Meanwhile, Shusheng was preparing his gang. The car behind them was full of armed men ready to kill. Shuya complained, asking why Jing had dragged her into that mess. Jing replied that she knew very well Shuya was fake, pretending to be a friend just to take advantage. Shuya denied it, saying she only wanted to help and to put Xiaoyang back on a leash. But Jing got distracted when she noticed what was on the ground in front of them. Shocked, she asked what had happened there, seeing so many dead bodies. Shuya suggested they should leave quickly. Jing examined the blood and commented that the corpses looked like they had been dead for hours. She wondered if there had been a fight between groups over Xiaoyang's supplies. Jing concluded that in that case, Xiaoyang was probably dead. But right after saying that, she added that she didn't care if he was alive or dead as long as she could get the supplies. At that moment, the executive, the gang leader Xiaoyang had shot before, began to get up despite being severely injured. They approached the fortress gate. Jing complained that the gate was terrible because you couldn't see anything on the other side. Shuya replied that if the door was locked, it probably meant Xiaoyang was fine. Then Shanshan appeared and asked who the two women were and how they knew about the place. Shuya said they were friends of Xiaoyang, and Jing introduced herself as his girlfriend. Shanshan went to tell him there were two women at the gate, with one claiming to be his girlfriend. Jing remarked that she wanted to know if Xiaoyang had gotten another girlfriend. Shuya said that wasn't important right now because they had other matters to discuss. But Shuya noticed that Jing was armed and wondered if Shusheng would really be able to force his way in, since he had brought several pistols and armed men ready to storm in if the gate opened. When Xiaoyang appeared, he asked coldly what they were doing there. Using his mind's eye ability, he saw that their excuses were lies. Even though Shuya pretended to be worried, saying they just wanted to see how he was doing in all that chaos, Xiaoyang knew they were ready to kill him. He questioned them directly, saying that if he was not mistaken, Shusheng should be nearby with his men. He asked how many people and how many weapons they had brought. The two of them were speechless, shocked that Xiaoyang knew everything. He fired warning shots at their feet to make them stop pretending. Shuya tried to calm him down, saying it was not the time to fight since he was armed. But Jing claimed she was not afraid, saying he would not have the guts to kill them. Xiaoyang replied that killing them would be very easy, but he had a better plan. Then he opened the gate and revealed that he had let a horde of infected people turned into zombies loose there to deal with any intruders. The creatures charged at Jing and Shuya, who tried to run and screamed desperately for Shucheng to help them. At that moment, Xiaoyang warned the others that there were infected patients nearby and ordered everyone to fall back and evacuate the area. They abandoned the girls there, not caring what would happen. However, Jing did not plan to die alone and decided to deliberately push Shuya down. As Shuya was captured, Jing took the chance to run away. Even while fleeing, Jing felt nervous and tried to convince herself she had done the right thing, telling herself that Shuya deserved it. Meanwhile, Xiaoyang completed his mission of eliminating threats, earning 10 more points from the system, reaching a total of 18. Right after, the system gave him a new task. He needed to clear the area outside the base, eliminating the infected and monsters out there. The reward for completing this mission would be another 10 points. At the base, Shanshan asked if everyone had turned into zombies. Xiaoyang explained that the apocalypse had officially begun because the infection had spread through the air. Everyone was infected, but they would only turn into zombies after death. He asked them to gather everyone for a meeting and informed them that no one would leave the base for the next 2 days. Doors and windows had to remain closed. If they could avoid contact with zombies during this time, their bodies would adapt better to the infection, reducing the risk of mutation. Zhang mentioned that Chang was badly injured. In the infirmary, Chang was already being affected by the virus and undergoing the mutation process. In the city center, chaos was everywhere, not only because of the zombies, but also because of the people themselves. Zhang Zhe watched everything through his home window, telling himself it was complete chaos. He told his wife and son he would need to go to the warehouse at night to get supplies and asked them to stay locked inside. But as he was doing this, someone knocked on the door. He slowly armed himself with a golf club and, hearing someone call for him, relaxed for a moment upon realizing it was Yang Tao. However, that relief was in vain. Yang Tao knocked him down with a kick and handed him over to his gang. Shang tried to argue, saying he had always treated him well, but Yang Tao accused him of being nothing more than Zhang's lackey. Shang said that if it were not for him, Yang Tao would be out on the street. But Yang Tao replied that, even though he had made money, Zhang had managed to buy several houses. He demanded that Shang give him the address of the warehouse and the keys, but Shang refused. Yang Tao, irritated by the resistance, threatened to go after his wife. Shang's son tried to fight back by biting Yang Tao, but was also beaten. Shang called the attackers cowards and asked them to take him instead, but leave his family alone. Yang Tao replied that as long as Shang cooperated, his family would be safe, and ordered them to take everyone to the warehouse. Later, when they arrived, Yang Tao was disappointed with how little was left and asked if that was all. Zhang explained that he had found a big client who bought everything. At that moment, Yang Tao remembered Xiaoyong and said that if they could get the supplies from his factory, they would have food for the rest of their lives. Shang warned they should leave quickly because Xiaoyong had stocked up on a lot of things, including weapons. Zhang commented that Xiaoyong seemed to have predicted the end of the world. Yang Tao said that was their problem to solve and ordered Zhang to negotiate with Xiaoyong, saying that if he did, his son would be safe. Meanwhile, at Xiaoyong's base, everyone was gathered in the infirmary in front of Chang, who had already fully transformed. His friends were devastated. Yiming suggested killing him right away, arguing that he was already dead and that if he broke free, he would be dangerous. Zhang asked if he was giving up on his brother so easily, but Xiaoyong confirmed there was no chance of recovery. Xiaoyong handed a knife to Yiming so he could do it himself since he wanted it so badly. He reminded him that Yiming had wanted a weapon since arriving and said this was his chance. However, Zhang took the knife and said he would do it. Xiaoyong asked if he was sure, if everything he had said was not just an act, and if he was willing to become a killer in the end. Zhang replied that he trusted his brother. Xiaoyong approved and let him proceed. When Zhang was about to kill Chang, Xiaoyong grabbed his arm. He stopped the strike because he had seen something specific in the system. Xiaoyong ordered everyone out of the room, saying it was a special situation he needed to check. The system had sent a notification informing him that a rare type of mutant had been detected. Alone with Chang in the infirmary, Xiaoyong confirmed his name and explained he had a very important task for him. In the city, Shang lost control of the car while trying to escape the zombie hordes and crashed into a pole. When he got out of the car, he faced a zombie. Even trying to defend himself, he ended up being bitten. Still, he managed to kill the zombie with a crowbar. He realized he did not have much time before succumbing to the infection, but kept walking toward Xiaoyong's base. Meanwhile, at the base, everyone was heading outside armed. Shanshan complained that the new gear strapped to their bodies was uncomfortable. Xiaoyong explained that it was purely for protection since zombies had no fear of death and attacked with explosive force. Even though they were ordinary people with no combat experience, they could easily get bitten, so they needed the protective equipment. Shaw spotted a zombie at the corner and warned everyone to get ready. It was their first real training against zombies. When the zombie charged, Xiaoyong reminded everyone of the instructions. Keep your distance and aim for vital points. He dodged easily and explained that the best moment to attack was right after the zombie missed a strike. The chubbier guy was the first to attack, stabbing the zombie in the head but not doing much damage, injuring himself in the process. Xiaoyong remarked that you had to handle the weapon correctly. The zombie lunged at the guy, who defended himself with the blade. Despite everything, Xiaoyong acknowledged that the defense was not bad, but he would need help from his companions. That was when Zhang managed to knock the zombie down with a baseball bat to its neck, successfully ending the training. Right afterward, Chang was beaten to death by the group, while Xiaoyong watched and said that was the right way to fight. However, he did not notice the zombie approaching from behind. Without much effort, he simply grabbed the zombie's head and knocked it down, explaining that you should never stop watching your surroundings, because another zombie could always appear unexpectedly. Meanwhile, Shang was still making his way toward Xiaoyong's base. He wondered why there were so many zombies gathered around that area. Suddenly, he heard a noise in the distance and realized there was a group killing the zombies. Among them was Xiaoyong himself, who seemed to be hunting those creatures. Under a car, a zombie that resembled Shuya grabbed Shang's leg. When he was about to be bitten, the zombie's head was blown apart by Xiaoyong with a firearm. With Shang pushed the bloody body off himself and, relieved, finally saw someone alive. But Xiaoyong, seeing the bite on Shang's leg, did not hesitate to point the gun at his head. Shang begged him to listen before shooting, explaining that Yang Dao had betrayed him and was holding his family hostage. He said they were being blackmailed to get supplies from Xiaoyong's base, and that, while he admitted he was no saint, he was making this final plea for his wife and children, who were innocent. He asked for help to stop those men and save his family. Xiaoyong reflected that even when Shang had tried to profit alone by buying all the supplies at the start of the chaos, it had ended up helping the fortress stay stocked. He was already inclined to help him, and then the system motivated him further by offering a reward for this new mission called Protect the Family, which involved rescuing Shang's family. Xiaoyong reassured Shang, saying he would take care of the situation. Shang was extremely grateful and promised that if there were a next life, he would repay that debt. He asked Xiaoyong to kill him right away because he did not want to become one of those monsters. However, Xiaoyong asked Shang to bring a motorcycle there and explained to Shang that he should go as far away as possible, isolating himself from everyone so he would not put anyone else at risk. Shang agreed, thanked him sincerely, and climbed onto the small bike they had managed to get for him, leaving determined to get as far away as he could, even with limited resources. After they finished the training killing zombies, Xiaoyong explained that they needed to burn them to make sure they would not come back. That way, Xiaoyong completed the mission of clearing the base of those creatures, earning 10 more points from the system and reaching a total of 28. He told the group that this had only been the basic training, but that they were all already able to defend themselves and even defeat small hordes. Next, he assigned the following task to Shang, giving him the key to the weapons storage and explaining that the fortress would be his responsibility. Shang expressed concern about Xiaoyong going alone to the city, saying the place was in total chaos. Zhang suggested that he, Yiming, and Shang go with him, but Yiming was not so willing. Xiaoyong explained there was no need, as they were not yet ready for that level of mission. He said he trusted Shang to keep everything in order while he was away. Later, Xiaoyong was in the car, checking all his weapons before leaving. He noticed the system store was still empty because the items took time to refresh automatically. He decided to force a manual refresh even though he knew it would cost precious points. When he did that, 2 new boxes appeared in addition to one he already knew, a level 1 black technology box, a medium supplies box, and the level 1 weapons box. The next manual refresh would cost 4 points. Xiaoyong told himself he needed to stop spending points without thinking too much, but believed it would be worth it. He decided to buy the black technology box first for 20 points, leaving only 6. A bright light appeared, revealing a physical strengthening potion +5. Surprised and pleased, he used it immediately, raising his strength stat to 13 points, equivalent to 260% of a normal human strength. Meanwhile, at Shang's house, his family remained hostage. Yang Dao returned to the room where they were locked up. Some men wanted to assault her, throwing her to the floor and tearing her clothes. One of them complained about the noise and called it disgusting, while another brushed it off, saying it was not the first time. A third warned it was risky because the woman had nothing left to lose and might fight with everything she had. He also warned that when her husband came back, there could be trouble. Yang Tao told them to stop and wait for him, locking the family in the room again. In the city, Xiaoyong was driving confidently, assessing whether it was safe to keep going down that street. He felt much stronger, with enhanced reflexes and reactions. He maneuvered and dodged obstacles easily. However, he had to stop when he reached an avenue packed with zombies. Realizing staying in the car would be even more dangerous, he decided to continue on foot. 2 zombies lunged at him, but Xiaoyong was not worried. With his increased strength, he threw one zombie into the other, creating an opening to draw a knife from his inventory. With 2 precise cuts, he decapitated both zombies effortlessly. He acknowledged that in that state, he would not lose to an ordinary zombie. His senses were so sharp they felt almost superhuman. Soon after, he heard a commotion about 800 meters away. The system notified him of a random encounter mission. He understood there were people surrounded by a large horde of zombies who needed help. They were all inside a convenience store trying to build a barricade to avoid getting killed. Besides the adults, there was also a child who was desperate. Inside was an armed police officer, but everyone knew his single pistol would not be enough to handle the entire horde. He wondered how they would get out of there alive. Suddenly, they heard a huge commotion outside. There was the sound of zombies dying, screams, and blood splattered everywhere. When a zombie's head was smashed against the store window, fear gripped everyone. The officer said they needed to check what had happened outside, and they began dismantling the barricade. When they went out, they were surprised to see the entire horde of zombies dead. They wondered who could have done that. The boy remarked it must have been a mutant, a stronger version of a normal zombie, but his father replied that those only existed in games and stories. The father also complained about the boy's low grades at school because he spent time thinking about such nonsense. The officer asked him to stop arguing with the boy at that moment. They carefully walked along the sidewalks to check if all the zombies were really dead. That was when they ran into Xiaoyong, who was checking his system and reviewing the mission. He had just completed the encounter mission, earning 5 points for saving those people. The child, looking at him, confidently said he had to be a mutant, but the officer thought he just looked like another survivor. Xiaoyong heard what they were saying and, with good humor, commented that the child had a vivid imagination, explaining that mutants existed but were not at all common. The officer was relieved to find another survivor and warned that it was dangerous to stay out there. He said Xiaoyong could join their group. Xiaoyong asked if it was just them in that group, and the officer explained it wasn't. He said they had gone out to get supplies, and that there were many other people waiting for help in Rongxiang Garden. Xiaoyong confirmed that he knew where it was, and mentioned that Jinyu's mansion was nearby. The child's father confirmed the location and invited Xiaoyong to join them, explaining that the captain had a weapon and everyone would be safer together. Pretending to be just a weak and harmless survivor, Xiaoyong thanked them sincerely for the hospitality. Together, they carefully started heading back toward Rongxiang Garden. On the way, the child's father asked Xiaoyong if he had something important to deal with near Jinyu's mansion. He asked if he needed to rescue someone, like a girlfriend or a relative, and commented that in the end of the world, it was better to be prepared for the possibility those people were already dead. The officer agreed, saying that the apocalypse didn't just have zombies as villains, but also cruel and corrupt humans. He explained that in that region there was a dangerous group with a base in Mountain Village that hunted people to survive. He said his own companions had been killed by them, but added that they would talk more about it later. In the middle of the conversation, the child warned that a zombie was approaching from behind the officer, who luckily reacted in time and shot the monster in the head. But the gunshot attracted the attention of an entire horde. The officer, trying to stay calm, desperately looked for a way to escape until he spotted a bus that could serve as shelter. He shouted for everyone to run there. Xiaoyong recognized that the officer was good at making decisions, realizing that the bus was good cover for that kind of situation. But he also thought that if the bus tipped over, there would be nowhere to run, rating the officer's decision a 7 out of 10. Xiaoyong was the last to enter, closing the door at the last moment. The zombies began slamming against the bus, trying to knock it over. The officer tried to keep the door shut but was running out of strength. Xiaoyong got up and, with a single hand, managed to close the door on a zombie's face, crushing it. The officer was shocked, wondering where that strength came from. Xiaoyong explained that he was holding the door but warned that to get rid of the horde they would have to break the windows and fight from there. The group began breaking the bus windows and, from up there, started stabbing the zombies' heads with the weapons they had. The officer noticed he was running out of ammo in his pistol and got even more tense. Xiaoyong, without difficulty, produced a crossbow and handed it to him, saying he could use that. The officer, surprised, asked where he had gotten that weapon, and Xiaoyong just said he had picked it up somewhere and saved it for a moment like that. The officer used the crossbow and bolts to kill the zombies more effectively. After some time, they managed to reduce the danger and left the bus. The child, excited, cheered that they were winning everything, that they had escaped twice already, and that they were destined to survive. Xiaoyong smiled slightly but warned the group to be careful, reminding them the situation was still far from under control. He also thought about his own base, hoping everyone there was safe and sound. Meanwhile, at the base, Yiming offered to stand guard at night. His friend commented sarcastically that he was finally taking action. Yiming snapped back, saying he always did, and told him to mind his own business. Another companion remarked that he had been acting very strange lately. Sheng suggested that since Yiming was so full of courage, he could patrol alone that night while the rest of the group rested. So, at night, Yiming climbed the watchtower. He looked around and said to himself that everyone was sleeping and he didn't have time to waste. He tried to grab the key to the storage room, but Shen woke up just in time. Even so, Yiming managed to react quickly, punched Sheng, and escaped with the key. The noise woke everyone up, and Zhang asked what was going on. Shang explained that Yiming had stolen the key to the weapons storage. Everyone started running after him. During the escape, Yiming went to the infirmary and tried to release Chang. He was surprised to see that one of Chang's hands was already loose, wondering if someone had done it on purpose. He concluded that actually it was perfect for his plan. When the others reached the hallway, they realized Yiming had freed Chang. Sheng was shocked to see it and commented that he never imagined that child could become a monster. Shanshan warned that now Yiming would have access to all the weapons, but Sheng reminded everyone to execute the plan Xiaoyong had taught them earlier. Xiaoyong instructed everyone to be careful not to get bitten. They managed to restrain Chong and threw him back into the infirmary, locking the door. In fact, he didn't react much and even seemed too calm for a zombie. Xiaoyang thought it was strange that he hadn't tried to bite anyone or attack, but Sheng commented that by then Yiming was probably already armed. Soon after, Yiming showed up with a submachine gun and said the weapon was junk because it was the only one left in the depot. He claimed that Xiaoyang had been fooling everyone from the start. Even with that lousy weapon, Yiming ordered everyone back to their rooms. Zhang asked what he intended to do, reminding him that Xiaoyang had saved their lives. But Yiming said that didn't matter, because Xiaoyang could use that against them in the future. Yiming explained that Xiaoyang always acted arrogantly and domineeringly, and that after saving everyone, he would probably make them his slaves for the rest of their lives. Sheng said he had never seen anyone so ungrateful in his life, while another companion asked him not to do this. But Yiming told them all to shut up and ordered them to their rooms. At that moment, Chong appeared holding the key to his own infirmary. Meanwhile, in Rongshang Garden, Xiaoyang was walking with the group of survivors he had found. The policeman guiding them explained that after another intersection and passing the roundabout, he would reach Jinyu's mansion. He also said that the layout of that residential area was complicated, like a maze where zombies could easily hide. He asked Xiaoyang to be careful and told him that if he wanted to come back, they would be staying at Rongshang Garden in Building 8, where everyone was gathered. Xiaoyang thanked him for the help. One of the men asked if it was really okay to let him go alone, pointing out that he had helped a lot by killing the zombies. The policeman replied that they didn't know what the situation was inside the mansion, and that if they all went in and ended up surrounded by a horde, they'd die right there. He said they had done their part and that Xiaoyang was going because he wanted to. Outside Jinyu's mansion, there was a huge horde of zombies. Yang Tao remarked that without signal, he couldn't contact Sheng and had no way of knowing if he had completed the task. The bald man said he didn't care and that tonight he was going to take out all his frustrations, or he wouldn't even be able to sleep. Some of them commented that Sheng was probably already dead and that this time they would enjoy the woman without any regrets. The blonde man warned them not to regret it later, but as he was speaking, he noticed something strange. He wondered if that horde of zombies below had been killed just seconds earlier. He went to check the stairs, thinking reinforcements might have arrived. The next instant, his neck was sliced in a single motion. Inside the room, that group was about to do horrible things to the woman and her son. The boy was thrown into a corner of the room and then pushed outside. When the door where his mother was locked, he saw the headless body of the man falling to the ground. Xiaoyang appeared, calmly asking if he was Shang's son. Meanwhile, in the room, the woman was being slapped and humiliated by the men. The door was suddenly kicked open, and the first one who tried to check was immediately decapitated. The group was in shock. Yang Tao didn't even have time to react before being thrown against the wall. The bald man asked who he was, but got a kick in the face in response. At the same time, at the base, Yiming kept sending everyone back to their rooms. Sheng told Shanshan to obey, since Yiming was armed and it was better to do what he said. Yiming shouted that if they really thought they could plan something against him, they were wrong. He said that if he didn't show who was in charge there, he'd never be able to impose his authority. He also declared that the first to die would be the old man. Everyone thought Sheng would be killed right then, but a strange noise came from the infirmary. The door opened and Chong appeared holding the key. He was completely consumed by rage, foaming at the mouth and ready to attack Yiming. Seeing this, Yiming said he couldn't allow a zombie who knew how to use keys to stay alive. When he tried to shoot, he realized the gun didn't work. He didn't know that Xiaoyang would never have left a loaded weapon for him. Chong seized the opportunity and immediately killed Yiming. After devouring his stomach, Chong dragged the body back to the infirmary. Everyone was confused about why Chong hadn't attacked anyone else, only Yiming. Chong then locked the door again, threw the key away, and stayed inside alone. Meanwhile, Xiaoyang had captured Yang Dao and his gang. He called the boy over and the mother asked what he wanted to do, but the boy said it was fine. Xiaoyang handed a knife to Xiao Shui and explained that he needed to kill those men who had done so much harm. Even begging for mercy, Yang Dao and the other criminal failed to move him. Sheng's wife tried to argue that Xiao Shui was just a child, but Xiaoyang said the apocalypse had begun and everything had changed. He explained that from that day on, the boy would have to protect his mother and find the courage to eliminate those beasts who had hurt him. With great effort, Xiao Shui gathered his courage and killed the bad men. Then, with tears in his eyes, he asked where his father was and if he was really dead. Xiaoyong confirmed with sadness that his father was dead. Mother and son were deeply saddened. The woman then asked Xiaoyong to take her son with him so he would be safe. Xiaoyong said he would take them both and promised the late Shang that he would keep them safe. Later, they left Jinyu's mansion and Xiao Shuai asked who had killed all the zombies along the way. Xiaoyong replied that it had been him, which impressed the boy. Next, he asked the woman if she knew that area well. She said she knew how to get around anywhere there, which would be useful for the group. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, a group of criminals was trying to break into Building 8 of Rongxiang Garden. The team inside felt cornered, as they didn't have good enough weapons to fight the bandits. The policeman leading the building told them not to trust the criminals, warning that even if they spoke gently, it wasn't safe to surrender. He explained that they would all die if they opened the doors for them. Some residents suggested they could beg for mercy, but a terrified woman made it clear she didn't want to be touched. The policeman insisted they needed to resist and that they would have an advantage if they held the stairs, since there was no other path for the invaders to take. Outside, one of the criminals admitted that the group inside was well armed and knew the policeman was experienced. Even so, the leader of the attackers decided they wouldn't try a frontal assault. Instead, they would cut the building's water and electricity, hoping the residents would surrender out of necessity. But Xiaoyong was already prepared with his AK-47. Xiao Shuai, curious, asked if those men were bad. Xiaoyong replied that they were the same kind of people who had hurt him and his mother. The policeman in the building decided to go ahead carefully to check the situation and try to keep everyone safe. He approached the window to peek out and heard gunshots, but soon realized they weren't aimed at the building but at the criminals in the street. He then saw Xiaoyong mowing down the bandits without any hesitation, killing several of them. The few who managed to take cover tried to shoot back with pistols, but they were clearly amateurs and missed every shot. The leader of the criminal group was frightened by Xiaoyong's violence, wondering where that lunatic had come from. Even as he tried to order the last survivor to shoot him, he was taken by surprise. When he stood up, Xiaoyong reacted quickly, dodged, pressed the pistol to his neck, and fired without hesitation. After wiping out all the attackers, Xiaoyong entered the 8th building. The residents were ready to fight him, thinking he was another criminal, but quickly realized who he was. The group led by the policeman was relieved, and Xiaoyong told them they could come out safely. The policeman praised him, saying he was incredible. At that moment, Xiaoyong received a new mission from the system. He needed to recruit the 5 survivors from Rongxiang Garden and would earn 25 points for it. He asked the policeman who these people were. The policeman explained that they were members of a dangerous gang called Baiquishan that controlled the south of the city. Xiaoyong then asked those who knew the route well to explain how to get there. One of them said it was a very well-armed gang with plenty of resources. Another added that they had taken all the villagers in Baiquishan hostage. Xiaoyong thought about his past life and remembered that Xuxiang and Quijing had stayed at a base in the south. Maybe it was these same criminals who had invaded his base before. He asked if the Baiquishan were the only ones in the south, and a man explained that they weren't originally, but they had killed all the others to take control, proving how cruel they were. Xiaoyong decided he needed to deal with them and asked the policeman to check the bodies of the dead criminals for ammunition. He said the policeman could keep the AK-47 they found, warning that the Baiquishan would certainly send reinforcements to avenge the defeat. He explained that they would probably send 10 more men and that they would have to hold the building for a few more days while he handled the situation. Someone commented that he wouldn't be able to do it alone and would die if he tried. The policeman agreed, saying it was very risky and that staying there wouldn't be safe for long either. Xiaoyong, however, assured them they didn't need to worry about that, saying it was something personal between him and the Baiquishan. He said he would take everyone east where he had built his fortress and asked them to be careful until then. Meanwhile, at the Baiquishan base, there were zombie corpses hanging like macabre decorations. Inside, a meeting was taking place around a table with Xuxiang present. A man with glasses named Chef Lin asked Xuxiang if he had already solved the supply problem. Xuxiang replied that he had sent some people to take care of it and that they would be back soon. Another member, Kai Ji, commented that many allies were living in their mansion and that they couldn't just go raiding the entertainment district for supplies. Xiaoyong explained that they were all in the same boat and had already sent his people to bring everything and everyone. Lin, however, questioned whether he had really failed to complete the only task he'd been given so far. Xuxiang tried to calm him down, saying that this time everything would go perfectly. Later, Xuxiang wanted to know where his subordinates had gone since the team hadn't returned. One of the men explained that he had sent a reinforcement team to check what had happened an hour earlier, but they hadn't come back either. They had all been killed. Xuxiang was shocked to learn they had been killed by ordinary civilians in Rongxiang Garden and couldn't understand how so many armed men could fail like that. Faced with this, he ordered everyone to be gathered, determined to make sure they wouldn't fail this time. Meanwhile, Xiaoyang was returning to his base. Shanshan heard the sound of the car and got excited. As soon as he arrived, he completed the mission, took responsibility, and earned another 25 system points, reaching a total of 36. Shanshan was relieved to see him back. Xiaoyang commented that it was Yiming who had rescued him, and Shanshan was surprised, asking if he had known that the whole time. But Xiaoyang just asked Zhang to take Shanshan and her son to the infirmary. Later, they asked if he really knew Yiming was the traitor. Xiaoyang explained that he wasn't sure, but he suspected one of Zhang's friends was problematic. That's why he had only left a fake weapon in the depot, avoiding bigger risks. Shang then brought up another important matter. He said that Chang, who was in the infirmary, was behaving strangely. Xiaoyang said he already knew he was a special zombie, an extremely rare mutant. When he entered the infirmary, Xiaoyang asked if Chang could understand him and told him to blink 3 times if he did, which Chang did. Xiaoyang began explaining to Chang that after the start of the apocalypse, some infected went through different mutations. These rare mutants were more intelligent, had much more potential than normal zombies, and could retain fragments of their past memories. He remarked that they were very lucky that Chang was one of the rarest types. As Chang walked, he deliberately stepped on Ying's head, and seeing his friends, gave a little grin and waved playfully. Xiaoyang decided there was no reason to delay anything else and ordered them to finish off Yiming. Chang then dragged Yiming away. Zhang asked if Chang still remembered him. Chang looked at him for a moment, pretended to grab Zhang's bag, which made Zhang complain that he was still the same idiot and that even as a zombie he needed to keep his hands to himself. It was clear Chang had done it just to tease him. Later, Xiaoyang checked his system. He had received an achievement for having a mutant companion, earning 10 more points and reaching a total of 46. In the system store, there was a level 1 medical supplies box, a level 1 weapons box, and a level 2 high-tech box that cost 50 points. Xiaoyang noticed it was the first time he had seen a level 2 box, but thought the price was too high. He decided to buy the other 2 boxes first and leave the level 2 one for when he had enough points. After buying them, he was left with 36 points. In the first box, he got an interdimensional infection blocker, capable of preventing an infection or eliminating it at an early stage even if the person was already contaminated, though it couldn't reverse complete mutations. In the second box, he found a sniper rifle and plenty of ammunition. He considered the boxes to be really good since he could now literally stop someone from turning into a zombie in the future. Next, he looked at his upcoming mission, which would earn him 25 points if he managed to recruit the survivors from Rongshan Garden. He decided he would open the level 2 box later and do that mission the next day. Meanwhile, outside, Chang was throwing Yiming's body away. The next morning, Xiaoyang began the first marksmanship and shooting training with the group, firing at cans and bottles for practice. After a while, he asked Sheng to gather everyone because there were survivors in Rongshan Garden, and he planned to bring them to the base later that day. Chang was chosen to go with him on this mission. On the way, they found an abandoned bus in the middle of the road and had to forcibly remove all the zombies inside. After that, Xiaoyang handed Chang the key to unlock his muzzle. He explained that when they were alone, he wouldn't need to wear it, but as soon as they entered Rongshan Garden, he would have to put it back on so as not to scare anyone. Meanwhile, Shuxiang was preparing his task force with the goal of settling the mission once and for all, determined not to accept another defeat at the hands of Rongshan Garden. With the bus he had secured, Xiaoyang advanced without hesitation, running over all the zombies in front of him and weaving between the abandoned cars on the street. There was no traffic at all, so he took advantage of it to clear the way without worry. Meanwhile, in the 8th building, the group of survivors gathered to ration the little food available. Despite the difficulties, everyone was still alive. A boy there with his father heard the sound of a vehicle approaching. The group's police officer decided to check first who it was, keeping everyone safe. Watching from afar, he realized it wasn't Xiaoyang arriving but Shuxiang and his group. They were heavily armed, clearly ready to attack and take down the building. The officer recognized them as the bandits from Baikuishan Mountain and warned that they were not allies. Someone remarked that this time they wanted revenge and felt confident because they were armed too, but the officer reminded them that the enemy still had the advantage of the terrain. Quickly, he climbed to the rooftop to get a better position, instructing the rest of the group to follow the agreed plan. Meanwhile, Shusheng and his men moved back slightly to find a good spot to shoot at the building. They prepared their submachine guns and fired together in a coordinated attack. Then Shusheng grabbed the loudspeaker to threaten the group inside and deliver his warning. But before he could say anything, one of his allies was killed by a headshot and another was taken down with a shot to the leg. The one firing was the police officer, well positioned on the rooftop with his AK-47. This surprised the enemy group, as they had incorrect information that the residents only had a pistol. Shusheng, surprised, said he didn't know how they had gotten that automatic rifle. Faced with this, he said they needed to retreat but ordered everyone to wait for his signal. One of his men, impatient, tried to flee too soon and was killed with shots to the head. Only after the signal did they begin to retreat in an organized way, but even so, they were shot down one by one. Shusheng, realizing the situation was lost, used his subordinates as bait to distract the shooter. He managed to get into the car, even abandoning one of his wounded men, who was quickly killed by the officer's shots. Meanwhile, Xiaoyong was still on the road. Along the way, he came across Shusheng's car but chose to let them pass. He had a more important objective to accomplish at that moment. Arriving in front of the 8th building, Xiaoyong noticed that the AK-47 he had given as a gift had really been useful. Chong, seeing the bodies on the ground, showed great interest, hungry. Xiaoyong allowed him to feed on the bodies, explaining that they were enemies and would have become zombies anyway. Thus, Chong began devouring the corpses and, besides satisfying his hunger, regained his strength by eating human flesh. As they passed the bodies, Xiaoyong commented that Officer Hongli had killed many enemies. The people watching from the window finally recognized him and came down to meet him. Hongli and his group went to gather with him on the ground floor. Xiaoyong asked if they had been the ones who dealt with the bandits, and Hongli confirmed proudly, saying that with that weapon, it had been easier to defend themselves. Then they heard a strange noise. A zombie was approaching, and the group, frightened, pointed their weapons at it. It was Chong, but since no one knew him yet, everyone was tense. Xiaoyong reassured them, explaining that Chong was with him. Even so, Hongli found it strange that he had a zombie as an ally. Xiaoyong clarified that Chong was not an ordinary zombie and that he would explain everything in more detail on the way. They gathered everyone and boarded the bus to leave together. Before that, Xiaoyong asked Chong to eat as quickly as possible. Later, Chong put on his muzzle, which also functioned as a mask so as not to scare the other passengers. A child asked if he put the mask on himself, and Xiaoyong warned to be careful talking like that near Chong because he was easily offended and might react badly. When Chong climbed onto the bus, he was so heavy that the vehicle actually rocked. Hongli was impressed by his strength. After Chong finished eating, he tried to hand the bus key back to Xiaoyong and mumbled a few words. It was noticeable that he had evolved by eating human flesh, now able to speak basic words almost like a child learning to talk. This indicated he would become even stronger and smarter in the future, even though he was not a normal zombie. They continued their journey back to the base. Meanwhile, Shusheng returned defeated and dejected. Already at the base, he was harshly reprimanded for failing again. He tried to justify himself by saying he didn't know the enemies had an automatic rifle, but the boss didn't believe him, asking how some peasants would have gotten such a weapon. Shusheng said they could send someone to check if they didn't believe him. At that moment, Kaigi knocked him down with a kick and kicked him out of the room, calling him a failure. Another member of the group commented that Kaigi only wanted the woman who stayed near Shusheng. Kaigi denied it, saying it had nothing to do with that and tried to defend himself sarcastically. The boss told everyone to calm down, saying they would find the right moment to deal with it. Shusheng, listening to everything, was furious and later, alone, began smashing everything around him in anger. His ally Qinga tried to calm him down, asking him to control himself, but Shusheng was determined. He said not to pack anything because they would abandon that place. He considered it too unsafe and wanted to flee. He ordered them to gather all the remaining survivors to escape at midnight. Meanwhile, the bus with the survivors from Rongsheng Garden arrived at the base. Xiaoyong had completed his mission to recruit 5 people from Rongsheng Garden but brought a total of 8 survivors, thus securing 5 extra points. Now he had 66 points in the system. He then told Chong that the next night they would head to the south of the city. Hongli asked why they would go to such a dangerous place, and Xiaoyong explained that he had unfinished business with the people from Baikushan. Later, already in his room, Xiaoyong was once again analyzing his system, ready to buy the last level 2 high-tech crate. Xiaoyong spent 50 system points to buy the last level 2 high-tech crate, leaving him with 16 points remaining. He thought to himself that he hoped this purchase would not disappoint him. When he opened the crate, he found a physical enhancement serum plus 20 and was surprised to find something so valuable in a level 2 crate. He applied the serum and his physical attribute rose to 33 points, more than 6 times the strength of an average human. His reflexes also improved so much that he managed to catch an insect in the air effortlessly. Later, Xiaoyang got ready to board the bus for his next expedition, which aimed to resolve the remaining problems. Meanwhile, Hong Li practiced with the weapons and noticed he was heading out. He asked if there was anything he could do to help, but Xiaoyang just recommended that he guard the place, reminding him that Hong Li was an excellent marksman and could also train the other survivors. Hong Li agreed, saying that was his specialty. Thus, Xiaoyang and Chong set out on the bus for their mission. Meanwhile, at the Baikuishan base, Shushang was trying to flee with his group in the middle of the night. However, as soon as they left, they were intercepted by a car carrying Chief Dongshu, Kai Jie, and Kui Jing. Dongshu asked where he thought he was going. Shushang tried to lie, claiming he was just heading to Rongshang Garden to complete a mission. To expose him, Dongshu ordered them to show the truth, and they threw the dead body of one of Shushang's messengers right in front of him. One of his subordinates tried to intervene, saying that man was their friend, but Shushang, nervous, punched him, insisting he had never seen that man before. Dongshu and his men opened fire on all of Shushang's subordinates, killing them without hesitation, leaving only Shushang alive. In a cruel tone, Dongshu remarked that there was someone with a very loose mouth in the car. That was when Shushang realized he had been betrayed by Kui Jing. She had told them everything. He became furious, asking how she dared to betray him. Kaigi wanted to know what they would do with Shushang, and Dongshu ordered them to kill him immediately. With no chance to defend himself, Shushang was hanged and left hanging in front of the base, serving as a grim warning to any other traitor. When Xiaoyang arrived with the bus, that was the first thing he saw. He recognized Shushang's cruel fate, telling himself it was deserved, but even so, he saw a use for him. He freed the now zombified body and remarked that even with such a tragic end, Shushang could still help him get revenge. Meanwhile, inside the Baikuishan base, there was a disgraceful scene that did not deserve a detailed description. Kui Jing was wearing extremely revealing clothes and was clearly involved with Lin in an intimate situation. While they were distracted, Kaiji heard a strange noise coming from outside. He peeked out and saw the guards were dead. As someone knocked on the door to draw their attention, Xiaoyang approached stealthily from behind. Without giving them a chance to react, Xiaoyang slit Kaige's throat, killing him silently. He then threw another knife with precision into Lin's head, killing him instantly and spraying blood everywhere, including over Kui Jing. Terrified, she recognized Xiaoyang and asked how he had gotten there and what he wanted. Xiaoyang observed the situation and sarcastically noted how much fun she seemed to be having, commenting on what Shushang would think if he saw that. Kui Jing tried to react but had no time. Xiaoyang released the zombie Shushang, who completely ignored his former ally and went straight for Kui Jing, now tied up and unable to resist. She died in a miserable and cruel way, devoured by the one she had betrayed. Later, Xiaoyang instructed Chong to feed on the bodies scattered throughout the base. Meanwhile, with his new superhuman senses, Xiaoyang heard something coming from a nearby building. They were the voices of hostages being threatened. Among the bandits, one said a child would be perfect as meat. But the boss, an obese man, disagreed, saying she was too skinny and suggested taking another, chubbier boy. The child was torn from her mother's arms while she begged for mercy, crying and pleading for them to spare her son. In the midst of that horror, they heard a loud crash outside. The boss thought it was the sound of a shotgun, but another reminded him only he had such a weapon. Just as the child was handed back to her mother, the door slowly opened. The boss ordered one of the men to check, but he regretted it immediately. He was violently grabbed by Chong, who appeared like a predator. The bandits fired desperately but couldn't stop him. Chong smashed through the window as if it were paper, broke the boss's neck, and massacred all the remaining criminals with brutal force, sparing only the hostages. The people, terrified, didn't know what to think of that monster and wondered what kind of zombie he was not to attack them. Xiaoyang arrived shortly after, praising Chong's work, noting he didn't even need to remove his mask. Chong commented that the mask made everything more fun. The hostages were still scared to see a zombie talking, especially a child who said he was a powerful monster that had killed everyone. Xiaoyang reassured the group, explaining that Chong wouldn't attack them. The mother of the child said she had seen something similar before, mentioning that in the eastern part of the city there was a similar creature. Xiaoyong reflected on this, surprised that these mutations were appearing so soon. He had thought it would take another month or two for such cases to become common. The city of Decor, located to the east, wasn't very far from there. He concluded that, like Chang, there were other rare mutants. Some zombies, depending on the individual, could retain part of their sanity and memory, turning into extremely efficient killers. But there were also unstable mutations, far more violent and dangerous to everyone. Chang asked Xiaoyong if he was like those dangerous mutants. Xiaoyong explained that he didn't need to worry because he wasn't like that. In fact, he told Chang that he was one of the luckiest. With Xiaoyong around, he would never lose his sanity. Then Xiaoyong asked if there were any other survivors in that place. The people replied that there were still several locked rooms and mentioned that there were people alive in the basement. When they went down there, they found a terrible scene. It looked like a human slaughterhouse full of human remains. Xiaoyong thought that might explain why there were no other survivor groups in that area. They must have killed so many people on purpose. He considered that either the meat had been wasted because there weren't enough people to eat it, or it was being used to feed zombies. Xiaoyong asked about the situation in an office they had mentioned earlier. One of the men explained it was about a kilometer away near the south gate, where several people had been locked up and would probably suffer the same fate. That was when Xiaoyong received a new mission from the system called Utopia Subpar. The goal was to expand and improve the community, aiming for the highest score possible. At that moment, he had only 2 progress points and would earn 20 system points upon completing the objective, in addition to the 36 he already had. At the sales office they had mentioned, the group guarding the place heard the sound of gunfire coming from the north gate. In no time, Chang appeared, eliminating all the enemies without difficulty. The women held there as hostages, locked in a ruined room, were frightened by the gunshots and the attempts to force the door. When they finally saw who it was, they were relieved to see it was Xiaoyong, who allowed them all to leave. Soon, a line of survivors formed behind Xiaoyong as they crossed that completely destroyed area full of corpses. The people were still shaken. One of the women asked if he really would offer them a safe place to stay. Xiaoyong confirmed he would, but explained that everyone would have to work. The people agreed immediately, even looking excited at the prospect of a safe shelter. Xiaoyong encouraged them not to waste time. Everyone boarded the bus and headed to the base. When they arrived, Shanshan commented with relief that he had finally returned, but Zhang warned them not to open the gate yet since Xiaoyong had not given the order clearly. Xiaoyong explained that this was his fortress, but he couldn't just let everyone in right away. Recognizing the difficulties of the current times, he said he had built a small housing complex next to the fortress. That place was not as secure as the fortress, but it was still far better than the horrible place they had been rescued from. He said there were still many unfinished buildings and that everyone would have to work to improve the conditions. He promised that those who proved themselves worthy would have a chance to enter the main fortress. Meanwhile, in the morning at the Baikwishan village, a delivery truck arrived with a woman in the car in front. She was impatient, noticing no one was answering the radio and complaining about the boss's incompetence. Sensing something was wrong, she opened the door to one of the rooms and found the dead bodies of Lin and Kaiji along with signs of the massacre left by Xiaoyong. The first to react was Xu Sheng, but she knocked him down with a single punch and finished off the other enemies with knife strikes. She told her men that there was no choice but to settle everything themselves. She declared that anyone who broke the rules would die. As they walked through the village, they witnessed the trail of destruction with many corpses scattered around. A subordinate remarked to Rui that there was no one alive there. Even so, they noticed there was still enough meat stored in the base. Rui ordered them to load everything into the truck. While they did this, she noticed something that worried her even more. Fresh tire tracks on the ground, clear evidence of who had passed through there. Meanwhile, Xiaoyong was analyzing his new mission to expand the community. It was a type of goal he had never seen before, as he needed to accumulate the highest possible score, with population growth being an essential factor for survival. He reflected that the land, despite everything, was actually fertile, and thought about how even the work of some of his arrogant enemies had helped make it that way. Remembering the matter of rare mutants, Xiaoyong went to the lodging where the new survivors were gathered. Many called him their savior, kneeling and bowing in his presence. He asked them not to do that, keeping a serious tone. He then asked the same woman who had spoken about the monster before exactly where she had seen that creature. She explained it had been at the market in Decor City. She told him that at the time, she and her group had gone there to get supplies. That was where they encountered that terrible creature. Many were killed, causing widespread panic. She managed to escape with her daughter, running toward the Baikwishan Mountains thinking they would be safe, but they ended up being captured by other bandits. Xiao Yong thought about the name Decor City, and Shan tried to dissuade him, saying he didn't have to go face that creature since they already had enough supplies. Zhang, however, argued that they couldn't just stay idle because the more resources they got, the better it would be for everyone. Xiaoyong considered that the most important thing was that Decor City was only 2 kilometers away, and they couldn't allow that monster to become a threat to the base. The woman, frightened, tried to stop him, saying it was too dangerous that the creature killed anyone, but Xiaoyong confidently said he knew what he was doing. He asked Zhang to call Chong because they were going to pay a visit there to solve that problem. In Decor City, another group of survivors was gathered in an old real estate office. Among them, an arrogant man was arguing with the secretary about going to look for supplies in a nearby supermarket. The manager knew the area and believed there might still be something there. Another man was more pessimistic, saying it had probably already been looted. The secretary tried to keep the group optimistic, reminding them that even in looted markets there was usually something useful left. When they finally entered the supermarket, they found a dark and eerie environment. They managed to find some supplies, though they were few, but soon they heard a strange sound coming from the darkness. A small horde of zombies appeared and was eliminated with some effort by the survivors, who still found the place very unsettling. They decided to quickly grab what they could and get out of there. But deep in the darkness, a silent mutant watched them, waiting for the right moment to attack. While the survivors gathered what they could, the secretary even lay down on an old bed to rest, suggesting they could turn the place into an improvised base. The manager and another man went outside to smoke and talk about the plan. One of them asked if it was safe to stay there, but the manager admitted he wasn't sure if it was a good idea. The group analyzed the mall and noticed there were many entrances and exits, making it hard to defend. They also knew that a place with so many supplies would attract the attention of other survivors. While he explained this to the others, one of the men was suddenly caught off guard when a blade sliced through his throat. The attack came from a mutant who killed him, saying that fresh meat was the best. One of the survivors tried to run away screaming for help, but only managed a few steps before being cut in half. The others panicked and began running in fear. However, the mutant warned that no one would escape. One by one, they were all killed in brutal fashion. The secretary got the closest to the door, running with all the hope she had, but something reached her. It was Chong, who completely ignored her and kept going. Then Xiaoyong appeared and tried to calm her, telling her not to be afraid. The secretary recognized him, remembering that he was the boy who had bought that piece of land, and he also remembered her. She had sold him the land and her name was Ning Wanwan. She confirmed it but warned that they needed to run because there was a monster or ghost in the place. Xiaoyong, however, said everything was fine, assuring her that the monster would be eliminated soon. When Ning Wanwan looked to the side, she was very shocked to see Chong fighting the large mutant. He was able to defend himself easily, even against the heavy attacks. The mutant asked if he intended to handle it alone. Chong replied that he would try, holding his opponent firmly. With a concentrated effort, he pushed him away with surprising force. The furious mutant remarked that there was another one like Chong and that this would be very fun. He showed that he was faster and stronger, explaining that eating several bodies had accelerated his evolution. Even so, he did not expect Chong's blows to be so heavy. After taking a punch, he was thrown against the concrete and admitted Chong was quite strong, only to immediately receive a kick to the head. The mutant managed to dodge at the last second and, clinging to the ceiling, declared that the power he had accumulated from eating so much was finally becoming useful. He then underwent another transformation, becoming even more dangerous. Chong and the mutant began trading blows at impressive speed. Zhang watched the fight and remarked that Chong was in trouble, recognizing that the enemy was very powerful. Xiaoyong thought that the trip had been worth it, since if they did not kill the creature right there, it could become even more dangerous in the future. Without hesitation, Xiaoyong pulled an AK-47 from his inventory, which surprised Wanwan, who did not understand how he had simply made a gun appear out of nowhere. Xiaoyong asked Chong to hold the mutant for just a moment, promising it would not take long. Chong then grabbed the mutant's hands tightly, allowing Xiaoyong to shoot straight at the creature's head. Even so, the mutant survived, admitting that Xiaoyong was different for being able to hurt him, but swearing he would now kill him. Zhang was shocked the shot was not enough, but Xiaoyong did not stop. He fired at the mutant for several seconds until its head looked like a sieve, ending the threat. After the battle, Xiaoyong asked why Chong had not eaten the mutant's body, suggesting that it might make him stronger. The system quickly notified him that he had received another mission point for removing a danger to the community. Xiaoyong, satisfied, said that since they were there, they would not leave empty-handed. They decided to clear out all available supplies, and he used his spatial ring to store everything. Zhang watched, always finding it impressive. Xiaoyong remarked that instead of letting the bodies turn into monsters, he wanted to know if Chong was still hungry. Meanwhile, not far away, Rui and her subordinate were watching Xiaoyong's base carefully. They were studying who was on watch and how many people were inside, concluding it was a decent number but poorly armed, something they could exploit. The driver asked if it was the same man who had defeated everyone in Baikwishan. Rui said obviously, recalling that they had used sneaky tactics to take down the other group. She commented that she had already warned people from the district that the place was not safe. For Rui, it looked like a divine gift, a new place to turn into her base. The other man even joked that he almost felt guilty. When the driver asked what the plan was and if they would attack right then, Rui was clear that they would not. They would go back to plan better, regroup, and bring heavier weapons to attack with everything they had. Meanwhile, Xiaoyong and the group were heading back to their base. Wanwan asked if the place was really that good. Zhang confirmed it was, saying they even had hot showers. Wanwan got excited at the idea, but Xiaoyong quickly noticed something strange, seeing people approaching and telling everyone to arm themselves. Zhang pulled out his machine gun, and when one car passed the other, Xiaoyong stared at Rui and received from the system a new mission called Nemesis Villain, Volume 1. He needed to resist the enemy invasion to earn 50 system points. Wanwan asked if that woman planned to invade their base. Later, Xiaoyong spoke with Xiaoshan, asking if she had seen anything suspicious that day. She said she had seen a car in the distance without knowing if it was coming their way, and asked Xiaoyong if he had noticed anything strange. Xiaoyong suggested they ask Grandpa Sheng to call everyone for a meeting because they had something important to announce. Meanwhile, in the coal mine in the southern suburbs, some survivors were walking around using communicators. They had come because they were lured by a message promising a base. They were looking for the exact location when a car approached. It was Rui's car and her team. She asked if the group had come because of the message and if they wanted to see the base. The survivors confirmed, impressed by Rui's appearance, and she replied they had arrived at the right time, asking them to follow her. The men showed suspicious intentions. Later, already at the base built in the coal mine, the group was very impressed with the size of the place, saying they had finally found a good place to live. One of them asked if there was a bathroom because he really needed it. Rui smiled and said of course, asking him to follow her. At that moment, the two of them were in the bathroom. For some reason, Rui had followed the man there. He seemed to pick up on her intentions and said he knew what she was thinking, asking her not to be so shy. But Rui did not hesitate and moved toward him, pressing a knife to his neck. She explained coldly that she had thought they would be good survivors, but in the end they turned out to be a disappointment. When she finished, Rui calmly returned and saw that her subordinates had already finished the rest of the work. All the survivors were dead. She soon said that they would soon call for transport to take all those bodies away. Meanwhile, back at Xiaoyong's base, everyone was already gathered. Hung Li asked if there really was someone wanting to attack the base and who exactly that person was. Xiaoyong explained that they did not have clear information about the enemy, but needed to prepare to face an attack at any moment. He said that Chong and Zhang would go with him to finish building the unfinished structures and that they planned to temporarily move the refugees there. Many people volunteered to help with the work, even Shanshan's son, showing that everyone was willing to cooperate. Wanwan, noticing the tense atmosphere, decided she would go too. Xiaoyong explained that area seemed relatively safe. Meanwhile, Hong Li and Grandpa Sheng were left in charge of defending the base while the rest of the group went to the abandoned buildings to salvage everything they could. This task force went to the unfinished buildings and, upon arrival, had to eliminate numerous zombies. In the end, despite the fight, no one was hurt. Chong took the opportunity to have his meal and Xiaoyong told everyone they would stay there for now, since the attack could come in the next few days. Some refugees volunteered to fight and help with the defense. Xiaoyong said that was fair, but first asked them to clean up the entire place. He explained that later he would send weapons and ammunition and that everyone should follow orders and communicate via radios. Meanwhile, Rui was preparing all her weapons for the attack. At that moment, it became clear she also had a mutant in her forces. She told the group they needed to take the attack very seriously since the people at that base had completely cleared out the village. One of the men asked who exactly had done that. Rui answered it was a group based in the eastern suburbs and announced they would start the attack the next morning. During the night, Xiaoyong was checking his system. He had accumulated 46 points. He thought about what he could buy and chose to purchase the level 2 Awakened Powers box, which cost 25 points, along with the level 2 Post-Apocalyptic Farmers box and the level 1 Supplies box. He bought them all at once since he had enough points. In the Awakened Powers box, Xiaoyong gained the ability of Physical Strength Overload, capable of increasing all his stats by 25% for a limited time. However, after the effect wore off, he would be temporarily weakened. He calculated that with his current 33 strength points, using the overload would push him past 40, which was equivalent to 8 times the strength of a normal human. He was excited to test this new ability. The next morning, Rui set out with all her people and weapons to attack Xiaoyong's base. She explained the strategy to everyone, saying that the first group should drive to the shelter and kill all the refugees. Meanwhile, the other group would try to open the metal gate. The mutant in their group showed enthusiasm, saying he was hungry. At Xiaoyong's base, Rongli was analyzing the terrain and commented that he had found good spots for cover, even if the view was a little more limited than from the watchtower. Chang told him not to worry since that would not be a big problem. Rongli asked why. That was when Xiaoyong remembered that Rongli had worked as a sniper for years. Rongli corrected him, saying he had only worked for a few months, but Xiaoyong asked if he could shoot accurately between 100 and 200 meters. Hongli interrupted, saying there was no need to worry because he could shoot well up to 500 meters. Xiaoyong thought that was more than enough. Soon after, Zhang appeared carrying something very heavy. When he opened the crate, everyone saw it was a Barrett, an impressive elite weapon. Hongli was surprised, saying he was not even sure he should be touching something of that level. Xiaoyong said he could use it, but warned they only had 2 magazines, meaning 10 bullets in total. Even so, Hongli was thrilled with the weapon. Xiaoyong then asked Zhang if the rest of the people were ready. If they were, they should put everyone on alert since the enemy could arrive at any moment. Later, Shanshan noticed something different on the horizon. Hung Li said he saw it too and thought it was probably the enemy. At the same time, one of Rui's subordinates noticed that the refugees who should have been in that area were gone. He suggested they might have been eaten by zombies. The driver asked if they should stop the car to check, but Rui was direct, saying no. She ordered them to go even faster, explaining that if the enemy saw them approaching at high speed, it would make the attack harder to contain. All of Rui's units advanced together. On the other side, Shanshan confirmed they were enemies and told everyone to open fire. Rui's group's vehicles were hit along with the drivers, who died in the shootout. The first car to lose its driver ended up exploding in the distance. Rui questioned how they had been spotted so easily. Even irritated, she ordered everyone to keep advancing until they reached the wall of the enemy base. That was the moment for the mutant to use his large saw to try to cut through the steel gate. Inside the fortress, Shanshan warned everyone there was someone trying to break the gate. They needed to shoot, but the people on the street were already ready to fight back. Amid the gunfire, even Kai ended up getting shot in the shoulder, and Zhang warned everyone to be careful. Even recognizing the enemy was well armed, one of the men in the base said not to be afraid because they had enough ammo. Meanwhile, the gate kept being cut. Zhao Yong told everyone to relax, saying he had a plan to deal with it, and ran to another part of the base. In the street, one of Rui's subordinates commented that they had already used up half their ammo. That was when the mutant finally managed to open the gate with the saw. Everyone ran to provide cover while Rui looked curious to see how they would handle the mutant. She ordered everyone to rush in at the same time while the mutant pushed the gate open. Inside the base, Xiao Yong signaled to Hong Li to wait for his command, explaining that he wanted him to aim at the biggest enemy and that he needed to eliminate him with the next shot. The survivors were terrified when they saw the mutant enter. Normal bullets did not penetrate its flesh, which also regenerated quickly with each hit. Watching this, Rui sarcastically commented that they seemed shocked because it was the first time they had seen an evolved mutant. Xiao Yang explained to Hong Li that normal weapons would not work, but his would. With just one shot from the Barrett, he blew off not just the mutant's head, but also part of its neck and torso. Rui was completely shocked to see that and wondered if they really had weapons of that caliber. At that moment, Xiaoyong appeared firing his AK at the attackers, completely pinning them down. The enemies tried to flee to their vehicles. Rui, furious, cursed Xiaoyong as that damn kid, and even threw one of her own subordinates in front of the bullets to escape, tossing his body forcefully. Even so, Xiaoyong managed to dodge the attacks and told Hong Li she was trying to get away. Hong Li fired again and hit Rui's leg, causing her to fall to the ground. Although he considered the shot a mistake for not killing her, she was pulled into the car by her men and managed to escape, even though she was badly wounded. Xiao Yong said it was fine because they would get their revenge later. The mission, Nemesis Villain, Volume 1, was completed successfully. He had repelled the invaders and received 50 reward points from the system. The mission to expand the community was also helped by the victory, as he gained morale among his members, earning 2 more points. In total, he now had 76 system points. Next, he received the new mission, Nemesis Villain, Volume 2, which required attacking the enemy base and eliminating the cannibals to receive another 50 points. Even so, so, he reassured the group by saying he knew exactly where the enemies had gone. The people celebrated the victory, pleased that they had not lost anyone from the fortress, even though there were some injured. Xiaoyong ordered everyone to be taken to the infirmary immediately to disinfect their wounds. He also asked for all the bodies inside the fortress to be removed and for the refugees who had been relocated to the abandoned building to be brought back. He was very satisfied with the number of points he had earned so far. Meanwhile, Rui was returning to her own base, now missing a leg. Her men were shocked to see her in that state and asked what had happened. Rui, irritated, admitted that she had not been careful enough and that she did not know the enemy had that kind of weaponry. Noticing her subordinates' suspicious looks, she asked why they were staring at her like that and complained that she needed to eat meat to recover, demanding their obedience. The man who had previously controlled the mutant asked if she had really sunk to that level and dared to talk to him like that. Rui, furious, asked if everyone was rebelling against her and ordered her men to take him down. However, they remained silent and did not obey. The man then declared that she was missing a leg, that the number 2 in the group, the mutant, was dead, and that this made him the most powerful now. He also said that everyone was tired of putting up with her. Rui, panicking, asked if they were really rebelling against her but was surrounded and brutally killed by her own men, who lynched her to death. Soon after, they called that subordinate the third boss, but he declared that he was now the first. Even so, one of the men warned him that their defenses were very weakened since Rui was dead, the mutant was dead, and many of them had been lost in the battle. They especially feared encountering that other man again. The new boss understood he was talking about Xiaoyong, known as the Tentacle Man, but replied that they might think about looking for shelter later. Later on, Xiaoyong and Zhang arrived at the coal mine. They confirmed it really was the hideout of those cannibals. Xiaoyong told them to advance carefully and make noise to confuse anyone still around. They passed by Rui's destroyed body along the way. Hongli commented that they were monsters for having killed their own people. Xiaoyong replied that it was not surprising at all. Zhang, remembering the large mutant they had fought, remarked that it was quite different from Cheng. Hongli agreed, saying he had heard something about evolution and asked what exactly an evolved being was and how someone reached that point. Xiaoyong explained it was through consuming human flesh. It was the most direct way for zombies or mutants to gain abilities and evolve. Hongli then asked if they would also have to eat human flesh to survive the apocalypse. Xiaoyong clarified that it was only the most direct method, but there was another, better way. He then showed them a type of glowing core. He explained that whether it was an evolved human or a zombie, everyone with special abilities was a mutant and needed to absorb exotic energy to evolve. He said all kinds of meat and blood contained a bit of that energy, even if only in small amounts, which was still better than nothing. The rarer mutants and evolved ones had that energy much more condensed in their bodies. And as the apocalypse intensified, more mutant zombies and exotic cores would appear. Hongli asked if zombies also had that energy and if they could just eat zombie meat. Zhang immediately rejected the idea, saying he would not eat that. Xiaoyong explained that normal people could not eat zombie meat because they would get infected. Only mutants like Chang could evolve that way. Then, suddenly, the system announced that the mission Nemesis Villain Volume 2 was complete, earning Xiaoyong another 50 points, bringing his total to 126. He thought to himself that since there were no more enemy survivors around, there was no immediate threat left. But at that moment, a zombie rushed to attack him and Xiaoyong easily brought it down without giving it any chance. That zombie had approached without making any sound, showing it was special. Xiaoyong took a core from inside it and offered it to Zhang and Hongli. Zhang refused, but Hongli decided to consume both cores at once because he wanted to get stronger. Soon after, he really felt much more powerful. Xiaoyong remarked that Hongli would become an evolved, but even so, his strength still would not be enough to dominate the apocalypse. Hongli promised he would not get arrogant. With the immediate danger gone, Xiaoyong decided that everyone would return to the base. Meanwhile, at the steel mill to the east, the people at the base noticed the approach of a group. The man in front introduced himself as the third boss of the coal mine. They asked if they remembered him. The first guard said he would report everything to the leader. A bald man wanted to know what that third boss was doing there, and a woman asked about the whereabouts of number 2 and Rui. The third boss explained that they had been attacked and killed. Hearing this, the bald man authorized his entry and ordered his subordinates to take the group to a safe dormitory. Later, in that dormitory inside the steel mill itself, one of the coal mine subordinates confessed he had a bad feeling about all of it, while the boss tried to say it was just paranoia. The subordinate insisted that the place looked more like a prison because it had iron bars. Soon, a man appeared, ordering everyone out. They were completely surrounded by the steel mill soldiers. The mine boss asked what they wanted from them, a woman with glasses asked what should happen to someone who betrayed their own leader. The third boss denied any betrayal, saying that Rui had died in the attack and that it was all a misunderstanding. The woman demanded clarifications and asked Li Cheng to explain everything he knew. Li Cheng said he had gone to the coal mine and seen Rui's body while the second boss was completely missing. The whole area showed signs of a major battle. According to him, the only plausible explanation was that they had turned against Rui. The third boss retorted that there was no proof of that. The bald man laughed at the idea of needing proof, reminding them that they lived in an apocalypse where that kind of thing no longer had any value. He admitted that, to be honest, if it were not for Rui and the second boss's abilities, they would have taken the coal mine a long time ago. He also commented that they could just kill them all right there, but one of those present suggested sparing them because they had valuable information. The woman with glasses showed interest, and the man revealed that there was a base in the east with many people and supplies. He said Rui and the second boss had tried to attack it but lost. He promised to guide the group there if they spared him. The woman wanted to know how strong that base was compared to theirs. The man said it was probably about the same strength but mentioned that he had not seen any evolved people there. The bald man asked how they had lost then. The man explained that the other group had heavy, high-caliber weapons. The woman considered that excellent information but still ordered them all to be executed. They begged for mercy but were all killed. That way, the coal mine was left with no survivors. The steel mill's boss asked what they would do next. They concluded that they should eliminate that threat as soon as possible. The woman warned that attacking suddenly would be risky since they had heavy weapons. She decided the best thing to do was to gather information first and evolve so they could face them safely. She ordered scouts to be sent to gather intelligence on the enemy. Meanwhile, Xiaoyong was reviewing his system, evaluating what he could buy with the 126 points he had. In the shop, there was a level 1 supply box and a level 2 black technology box, totaling 55 points. Xiaoyong commented that those boxes were very good and bought both, leaving him with 71 points remaining. In the supply box, he found 500 kilograms of premium lotus root powder, 200 kilograms of cocoa butter cakes, and 150 liters of cooking oil. In the level 2 black technology box, he got 20 more units of physical enhancement serum. He wasted no time and used the serum on himself. Suddenly, Shan entered the room, warning that a very suspicious person had appeared at the base. This man identified himself as a messenger and assured them he was not an enemy, asking to speak with the leader. When questioned, he confirmed he was looking for Xiaoyong. As soon as Xiaoyong showed up, the messenger's tone changed, becoming much more friendly. He introduced himself as Xu Axing, claiming to be from the steel mill to the west. Uncle Song reacted with surprise upon hearing the name. He explained to Xiaoyong that to the west was the largest steel mill in the region, near the coal mine, which currently functioned as a large survival base just a few kilometers away. Xiaoyong asked why he had come specifically there. Xu Axing replied that the world was very chaotic and that they were all survivors, so they should unite. He said he had been sent by his leader to recruit new allies. But Kai warned Xiaoyong not to trust him, since the man had been prowling the area with a map, inspecting everything. Xiaoyong analyzed the map and used his mind's eye to assess Xu Axing, concluding he was not trustworthy at all. Without hesitation, he pointed his pistol at the man's head, making it clear he knew his intentions. He demanded that he tell the truth or die right there. Xu Axing justified himself by saying they were just being cautious and didn't want enemies. Then Xiaoyong asked Zhang if they had any record on him, and Zhang said no. In the end, Xiaoyong ordered Xu Axing to leave. Everyone was a little surprised by the decision, but Xiaoyong had a plan. He handed the map back to the messenger and let him go, thinking to himself that the steel mill could be worth a lot of points in the system. The story then moves forward, showing what happened 5 months later. At the steel mill, there were rumors of people disappearing again. Some men suspected the known monster was active once more. When they approached the dump, they heard a strange noise and decided to wait for the guards to check it out. However, before they could do anything, one of them was struck in the neck with a knife. They immediately warned Li Cheng that there was a monster in the dump. When Li Cheng heard this, he asked if it was the tentacle man. They said it had to be him since the creature was behind a pile of trash. Even so, Li Cheng found the sudden, unannounced attack suspicious and ordered everyone to hide. Those with evolved abilities were to follow him. He set off with the squad of evolved people, telling them to flee if they were caught off guard. After they searched the entire perimeter, they found nothing but footprints left behind. Li Cheng reflected that since the coal mine had closed, many people had gone missing at the steel mill. Before, there were 3 bases for the monster to attack, but now only that one remained. Still, he concluded it wasn't the tentacle man. Meanwhile, at Xiaoyong's base, he thought about how he had survived much longer than in his past life, and that rebuilding civilization wasn't impossible. That was his mission, to create a utopia and grow his community as much as he could. He realized months had passed without a new system mission involving the steel mill. It was then that Shanshan returned to the base. Xiaoyong asked her and Zhang if anyone had noticed anything during the hunting operation. They replied no, since with their current strength no one even realized they were the killers. Xiaoyong also wanted to know how Shui had done on the mission, and they said he was adapting well, to the point of having killed a zombie alone. His mother confirmed proudly, while Xiaoyong considered it excellent and reminded them to save all the mutant cores they had collected. Finally, a mission called Nemesis Villain Volume 3 appeared for Xiaoyong, with the objective of eliminating all threats and helping potential allies, offering a reward of 80 points. Xiaoyong wondered if the system was referring to the people at the steel mill and whether he would really have to help them. Later, Hong Li remarked that it would be very dangerous for Xiaoyong to infiltrate there alone. Uncle Song explained that over the past 5 months, the steel mill people had continued sending spies and scouts to probe their base, and that if Xiaoyong went in alone, he would be an easy target. Even so, Xiaoyong said that with his current strength, it would be hard for anyone to hurt him. Besides, the whole purpose of the mission was to see if there were any potential allies inside. He trusted his team to defend the fortress during his absence, saying they wouldn't allow the base to be invaded while they were alive. Back at the steel mill, Li Cheng was in front of the boss's door trying to deliver an urgent report. The guard, however, said no one could go in except the 2 leaders. Impatient, Li Cheng lunged at the man and grabbed him by the neck. He then apologized, realizing he was losing control of his own body, something that had been happening since he started evolving. The leader in the room, Ling, ordered them to let him in. She listened to Li Cheng's urgent report, in which he explained he had a different theory about the disappearances. He didn't believe it was the tentacle man, since he had found women's footprints at the crime scene even though none of the victims were women. Ling understood that this indicated the possibility of another killer among them. She warned him not to spread the information since people were already terrified of the tentacle man, and if a rumor about another killer arose, there would be panic. She moved closer to ask if he had any plan in mind, but Li Cheng, embarrassed, said no and left the room, realizing afterward that he had forgotten to ask something else. Inside the office, Ling spoke with another boss whom Li Cheng hadn't noticed. This man asked if they really confirmed the presence of female footprints. Ling said they would have more work ahead, and he agreed, saying that he killed and she cleaned up, his favorite job, since he liked to drain bodies. Meanwhile, Xiaoyong was approaching the steel mill, killing a horde of zombies along the way. He knew he was close to his final destination and needed a disguise. He cut his hair a little, smeared his face with dirt, changed clothes, and put on glasses. When he reached the entrance of the steel mill, he was stopped by a guard who wanted to know who he was. Xiaoyong, in disguise, said he was alone and had finally found a base with survivors, so he was asking for help. The guard asked how he had managed to survive alone so far, and Xiaoyong explained that his old base had 10 people, but they had all died in a horde, leaving him as the only survivor. The guard commented that he must be pretty strong, to which Xiaoyong replied humbly, saying he had some strength from surviving so many attacks. Even so, the guard made it clear that to enter, he would have to pass a test. Xiaoyong thought the people there weren't very friendly. At that moment, Li Cheng appeared and wanted to know who the new man was. The guard explained that he was a lone survivor and planned to take him to an evaluation area. Xiaoyong became suspicious, thinking they wanted to kill him in an isolated spot. But Li Cheng surprised him by saying he could come in, even picking up more weapons if he wanted. Xiaoyong asked if he could trust them, fearing he would be shot as he entered. Li Cheng replied that in the apocalypse it was normal to be cautious, and that they weren't forcing anyone to stay. If he didn't want to, he could leave. Xiaoyong agreed and handed over his weapons to be searched, thinking that Li Cheng seemed to have some principles, not being a complete monster like some others. He also noticed that the people at the steel mill were different from the Baikyushan group, less savage. Li Cheng asked if he had survived the apocalypse using only a knife and whether he wasn't evolved. Xiaoyong, maintaining his disguise, pretended not to know what he meant, though in truth he felt much stronger than Xiaoyong. Li Cheng explained there was a rule in the base: evolved people had to report first to the boss. That was why Xiaoyong was taken to a reception room that looked more like a prison cell. Sometime later, the bald boss appeared, eyed him suspiciously, and asked his name. Xiaoyong, staying in character, introduced himself as Zhang Ye, The boss wanted to know if he was evolved, but his tone made it clear he already suspected it. To test him, he threw an axe at him. Xiaoyong barely dodged and realized that was the test. He understood he could have died right there if he wasn't evolved. The boss confirmed this coldly, saying that the death of an ordinary human wouldn't be any loss. He explained that evolved people needed to stick together and that it was good for Xiaoyong to know who he really was. He warned that few people in the base knew this secret and that Xiaoyong would have to keep it absolutely confidential. He threatened to kill him if he told anyone. In an intimidating move, he almost grabbed Xiaoyong by the neck, but Xiaoyong managed to dodge. Xiaoyong thought he could kill him at that moment but didn't know if the system would reward him for it right there. The boss, noticing his reflexes, admitted he had good skills, but explained that the power of an evolved went far beyond that. He then ordered the guards to take Xiaoyong to an empty room and give him new clothes. After that, Xiaoyong was introduced to the other important members of the base. He met Da Peng, who had as much power as the leader Huang Ling, both responsible for maintaining control there. Huang Ling remarked that he was lucky to have found that base, since he wouldn't need to worry about surviving alone anymore. But she explained that to eat and sleep there, he would have to prove his worth. Xiaoyong accepted and promised to follow orders. Bin, another officer, explained that he had arrived at just the right time because they were about to go out on patrol and he would go with them. Later, the guard who had received Xiaoyong at the gate was also on the team and asked Bin about the new member. Bin replied there was no choice since it was a direct order from the boss. A Jing, observing Xiaoyong, thought his face looked familiar. As they walked, Bin explained to Xiaoyong that he needed to keep the fact that he was evolved a secret. He said that in the base only the two leaders, Da Peng and Huang Ling, knew the truth about evolving by eating human flesh. Besides them, only 4 people made up the evolved squad: himself, A Xing, A Cheng, and Da Peng. They were all family. A Jing was Bin's brother, Da Peng was their cousin, and both he and A Cheng were Huang Ling's nephews. The whole family kept the secret, and if it leaked, everyone would know Xiaoyong had told. Xiaoyong remembered seeing Bin pass by his old base 5 months earlier. He asked about another officer, and Bin explained it was Cheng, a very talented and powerful foreigner, but one who knew nothing about the secret. Bin warned that if the secret got out, Xiaoyong would be killed without hesitation. Xiaoyong thought Cheng did seem very talented, and that with more resources or support, he could easily surpass the other leaders. The group reached a small survivor base. Intelligence said there were 7 people inside, none of them evolved, and few weapons. Xiaoyong wondered why they were hunting these people, but Bin explained they didn't plan to kill them just like that. They wanted to recruit them. A Xiaoyong commented that now that Xiaoyong was an evolved, he needed to change his way of thinking. He explained they were a new species, superior to ordinary humans, at the top of the food chain. Xiaoyong asked if they planned to recruit people only to then take them to the slaughterhouse, but Bin clarified that not everyone needed to be recruited. Some could be killed on the spot, depending on their worth. He told Xiaoyong just to watch and learn this time. Meanwhile, the survivors at the small base were building a wall when they saw a large horde of zombies approaching. Desperate, they tried to defend themselves with weak weapons, but some were killed. Xiaoyong noticed the cruel plan and wondered if the goal was really to lure zombies to weaken them. Bin admitted their resources were limited and that they couldn't just take anyone in, so they let the zombies eliminate the weakest and took only those who were really worth something. When a woman was about to be caught by the zombies, a Chiang stepped in to save her, killing all the enemies around. The rest of the evolved squad helped finish off the zombies and rescue the survivors. They introduced themselves as the evolved from the steel mill, saying they were there to save them. The survivors were convinced and grateful, impressed by their power. Xiaoyong estimated their strength was roughly equivalent to about 20 attribute points of strength, similar to Zhang and his own group. Suddenly, Xiaoyong felt a terrifying presence coming from a nearby building. When he turned, he saw nothing and thought it was just his imagination. He was soon called to help with the work, but inside that building there really was something hidden, the infamous mutant known as the Tentacle Man. Meanwhile, the survivors said they had a few supplies stored inside. Bin gave Xiaoyong the task of gathering all the supplies to load them onto a truck and collecting the bodies to take later. Bin took the rest of the survivors with him. Xiaoyong thought it was the perfect opportunity to be alone. The survivors were happy and relieved to have been rescued. One of the women even asked if there would be water for a bath and was told there would even be hot water to wash. Suddenly, A Xing noticed something strange in the distance, and Bin ordered everyone to stay alert. A Chiang protected the rescued woman, telling her to stay behind him, but A Xing felt that something was wrong approaching even if no one else could see it. He insisted he wasn't mistaken. Then he was pierced in the neck by a tentacle. The monster was ready to slaughter everyone there. At that moment, Xiaoyong was a little farther away collecting zombie cores and reflecting that he had managed to get 2 of them, which he considered a good result. But soon he heard distant screams. The tentacle man was attacking the group. Bin was captured by the tentacles and killed brutally, crushed to the bone. The others were terrified, and even a Chang couldn't react, realizing there was nothing he could do. At that moment, instead of running away alone, a Chang pushed the woman so she could escape first. She was about to be killed by the tentacles when Xiaoyong appeared, cutting them all and saving her. He looked at the creature and wondered if that was the famous tentacle monster everyone talked about. A Chang explained it wasn't the original monster but one of its offspring. He said the tentacle monster had the ability to turn normal people into smaller tentacled creatures, constantly creating these children. They were weaker than the original, but still dangerous. Even a Chiang admitted he would have trouble fighting the real monster. Despite this, he noticed how Xiaoyong alone could inflict serious damage on that creature. Amid the chaos, a Chang decided to flee, saying he would get reinforcements, and the other survivors ran with him. Xiaoyong thought to himself that the idea of getting reinforcements was just an excuse to leave him alone with the creature, but he didn't care. Soon he was grabbed by all the tentacles at once, but he stayed calm. He studied the creature, finding its concept rather interesting. With a clever move, Xiaoyong pulled the creature using its own tentacles against it. He realized that, despite appearances, he had much more weight and strength. He decided it was a good time to use his physical overdrive ability, something he hadn't had the chance to test before. When he activated the overdrive, his strength increased so much that he dragged the monster violently across the ground. In the next moment, he gave such a brutal pull that he ripped off all the tentacles and decapitated the creature. The woman there was completely terrified, not of the dead creature but of Xiaoyong himself, who, noticing her look, reminded himself that he was still human, not a monster. At that moment, reinforcements finally arrived. Chung and a Chiang were in front, assessing the situation. A Chiang told the others that their comrades had been killed by the tentacle's offspring. Chiang asked about the new guy, assuming he had also died since even the 3 of them hadn't been able to defeat the creature. Daipeng was furious when he heard that, calling everyone useless and even killing the first soldier he saw to set an example. But at that moment, Xiaoyong appeared, throwing the remains of the monster he had defeated alone onto the ground. Chang and Huangling looked surprised to see he was alive. Huangling confirmed those really were the remains of the tentacle monster's offspring. Xiaoyong coldly explained that he had killed the creature and avenged the companions who had died to it. The leaders exchanged looks, wondering if he was really that strong. Xiaoyong said that besides taking the creature's body, they should also prepare a truck to transport the supplies of the group they had rescued. Later, in a private meeting, Dapeng asked Ah Chang if he really thought that monster was stronger than Chung. Ah Chiang said yes, since his own brothers had been killed instantly, and admitted even he and Cheng would have great difficulty defeating it. Dapeng thought about it, recognizing the newcomer really did seem very capable. He remembered that in a private conversation, Xiaoyong had shown exceptional reflexes and might actually have that level of power. But Huangling cautioned them not to exaggerate, saying the monster's offspring could have ambushed the others and caught them off guard. At that moment, Li Cheng entered the room to offer condolences for the deaths. Dapeng accepted his words coldly, saying that in the apocalypse everyone had to be prepared to lose loved ones, but he asked him to get straight to the point. Li Cheng said he believed that newcomer, Xiaoyong, was as strong as Cheng and suggested they consider making him an officer. Dapeng immediately refused, saying they knew nothing about the boy's past and didn't trust him. Huangling, on the other hand, asked for calm, admitting Xiaoyong had enough strength to become an officer but needed to prove he was trustworthy to convince them all. Li Cheng argued that killing the tentacle monster's offspring alone wasn't proof enough. Huangling replied that while it was an impressive feat, it wouldn't solve all their problems at once. She warned that she wouldn't send him to die alone, but that they would take collective action. They would gather the strongest people in the base to hunt and kill the original tentacle monster once and for all. Later, Xiaoyong, listening to the entire plan, reflected that he had barely arrived there and was already being given such a dangerous task. He questioned whether it was really right. Huangling assured him there was no problem since he was strong enough to face it. Dapeng even suggested that if the mission succeeded, Xiaoyong could become third in command. He asked Chung if he minded the newcomer outranking him, but Chung showed no objection. Dapeng decided they would all leave for the mission in 2 days. Xiaoyong evaluated the proposal as too honest for people who didn't understand the danger, using his mind's eye to see their true intentions. He realized that, deep down, the two leaders really just wanted to see him dead, while Cheng was completely indifferent to him, neither liking nor disliking him. Later, near midnight, Kai gathered everyone and announced that Xiaoyong had made contact over the radio. Hong Li answered the call, wanting to know how things were going. Xiaoyong explained that the day after tomorrow in the South Suburban Park, there would be an important mission. He asked them to bring all the strongest people from the base, including Chong, saying it was time to finish off the threat at the steel mill once and for all. Hong Li, organizing the group, decided that Grandpa Song, despite being skilled, couldn't go. He was too old and it would be dangerous. Song accepted the decision calmly, saying he would stay behind to protect the base and wishing them all good luck. Hong Li then assembled the team: Zhang, Kai, Shan Shan, Zhishuan, Lu Chao, Jie, and Chong. Shuai, the youngest boy, also wanted to go, but his mother complained that it was only for adults. He insisted, saying he needed to prepare for the apocalypse and wasn't a child anymore. Song asked the mother to relax, reminding her that the boy could already kill zombies on his own. Hong Li ended up agreeing, saying he actually liked the idea and thought it was good for the boy to gain experience as soon as possible. On the day of the operation, everyone finally gathered with the leaders Li Cheng and Xiaoyong, ready for the mission that could decide everyone's fate. Xiaoyong was worried about whether they could get him out of there, but Da Peng assured him he had a plan. Watching the building, Xiaoyong saw his group positioned on top with binoculars and long-range weapons. They were ready to act at the right moment. Hong Li reminded everyone that it had been Xiaoyong himself who insisted no one stay close to the park, and now they were preparing ropes to descend at the right time, planning to attack the enemies from behind. Meanwhile, the leaders had brought a child to serve as bait, something cruel. Ling explained that she herself needed to take the boy to the park because the tentacle monster kept talking about a son. They wanted to give it that illusion to lure it in and attack at the right moment, ensuring the child wouldn't actually be in danger. Even so, the child resisted, saying he didn't want to be bait. Da Peng got angry, questioned if the boy was disobeying the leaders, and ended up throwing him into the park. At that moment, Hong Li gave the signal for everyone to descend. The child was screaming for help when the monster's roar echoed, calling for its son. The creature was eerily similar to Sheng Jieling, warned that the monster had appeared and it was time to rescue the child. Li Cheng tried to move forward, but the leaders held him back, saying it wasn't the right time yet. They wanted Xiaoyong to be the one responsible. Xiaoyong advanced without hesitation, reached the child, and threw him out of danger. But the tentacle monster grabbed Xiaoyong, demanding its son back. Xiaoyong recognized the creature, feeling the weight of the situation. Even so, Li Cheng was shouting at him to hold on, trying to break free from the leaders who were stopping him from intervening. Ling questioned the plan, saying if Xiaoyong didn't help, the rookie would die, but Ling insisted that was part of the plan. They wanted to see if the boy was really strong enough to face the monster's offspring alone. If he died, to them he was just disposable. Ling was outraged when she realized they had planned this from the start and asked why. Xiaoyong revealed he knew their secret. They were cannibals who ate human flesh. Li Cheng was shocked to hear that. Then the shooting began, revealing it was an ambush. Hong Li and his group from the base attacked with everything they had. Not just them, but Xiaoyong and the rest of the team also threw Molotov cocktails at the tentacle monster. When the monster advanced, it was surprised to see the child. The creature was actually Sheng Jia, someone Xiaoyong recognized. The boy, frightened, said the monster was very strong. Even so, the monster tried to calm him. Zhang warned everyone to be careful since it wasn't just a zombie. Chong then advanced, showing incredible skill dodging the tentacles. Meanwhile, the evolved people from the steel mill tried to take cover from the gunfire. Qing asked if the enemy group also had a mutant, and Ling wondered how it was possible that a mutant was fighting alongside humans. Chong was in an extremely powerful state. Even when he was bound by all the tentacles, he could break free as if it were nothing, although it was still a tough fight to defeat the enemy. Xiaoyong watched, pleased to see that Chong had finally found a worthy opponent. Da Peng commented on whether the rookie had just been playing around the whole time. Xiaoyong effortlessly cut the monster's tentacles to free himself. Qing realized something important. Shuai had called the rookie Xiaoyong, and he remembered they had talked before about the leader of that eastern base who had massacred the people at the coal mine, whose name was Xiaoyong. Da Peng understood they had been tricked. Ling concluded that the entire group must be from Xiaoyong's base. All those surrounding and fighting the monster were his strongest allies, the same ones who had defeated Rui and taken the coal mine. She recognized that they had no guarantee of victory, and even if they won, they would suffer heavy losses. Ching asked what they should do, and Ling told Dapeng to cover her because she was going to do something decisive. Dapeng threw his axe with such force that it caused an explosion in the forest, creating an opening. Hong Li's group was pushed back, and Ling took the chance to run toward Shuai. Kai tried to protect him but was kicked far away by Ling, revealing she was also an evolved. She grabbed Shuai, saying he was the solution to everything, and despite recognizing the boy's skills, punched him in the face. This enraged Shangze even more, who roared in fury. Chung took advantage of the distraction to grab the monster's neck, but Xiaoyong stayed calm. He assured everyone that the monster wouldn't attack them anymore because it would risk its life to save the child. Ling then threatened to kill Shuai if they didn't drop their weapons. Hong Li begged to be the hostage instead of the boy, but Ling, seeing their desperation, realized she had hit the mark. Wrongly wondered how they would explain to the boy's mother if something happened to him. Even so, Ling forced everyone to drop their weapons and Hong Li obeyed. She ordered Xiaoyong to use the monster he had brought to defeat the other tentacle monster, but no one expected the enemy's own sudden attack, so fast that only Ling managed to dodge. Ching and another evolved in the group died instantly. Ling hadn't expected that. She thought that by capturing Shuai, the tentacle monster would become submissive, but Xiaoyong just smiled while he and Chong watched without showing any worry. Hong Li was panicking at seeing the tentacle monster trying to grab Shuai, but Xiaoyong assured him the boy wasn't in danger. When the monster finally reached him, it simply called him son. That was when Xiaoyong revealed its true name, Shangzhe. He reminded the monster that he had kept his promise to keep its wife and son safe. The boy, confused, asked if that creature was really his father, and Xiaoyong confirmed it. It seemed he had been right all along. Shangzhe was also a mutant, just like Cheng. Shuai's first reaction upon realizing it was really his father was to hug him, missing him deeply. Dapeng couldn't hide his shock at the strange situation unfolding and ordered everyone in the group to fall back. But Shangzhe wasn't going to make it that easy. He grabbed one of the bald men to slaughter him. Meanwhile, Ling, instead of helping, decided to run away too. She thought that even fighting alongside Dapeng, there was no chance of defeating those creatures. For her, the only option was to try to escape. However, a tentacle reached her, slammed her face into the ground, and dragged her back. Dapeng laughed with contempt and said she deserved it. He looked at Li Sheng, saying it was just the two of them now and they had to cut the tentacles. But Xiaoyong appeared silently behind Li Sheng and told him not to move, promising that if he cooperated, he'd get out alive. Ling didn't help at all. Dapeng was yanked violently. He hit his face so hard on the ground that he broke his nose, cracked his forehead, and lost several teeth before being dismembered. Ling met an equally horrible fate. She was crushed until she was practically just a pile of meat. Seeing that, Xiaoyong concluded the mission called Nemesis Volume 3, eliminating all potential threats. He earned 80 points, bringing his total to 51. The potential allies mentioned in the mission were precisely Shangzhe and Ling. Xiaoyong then asked Li Cheng if he had any doubts about why they were doing all of this. Li Cheng wanted to confirm if they were really from the Eastern Base, and Xiaoyong said yes. Li Cheng also asked about the story of eating human flesh to evolve. Xiaoyong explained that the evolved didn't just appear out of nowhere. To get that strong, they had to eat human flesh. Li Cheng remembered in horror how he himself had fed a starving mother and daughter that meat, not knowing where it came from, and wondered if he had been serving human flesh to people all this time. During another tense moment with the tentacle monster attack, he remembered that the woman's daughter hadn't been killed by the monster but taken to the slaughterhouse. The thought made him nauseous, and he vomited just imagining it. In a fit of rage, he approached Dapeng's corpse and smashed it to pieces. He then turned to Xiaoyong and asked if the people from his base also got stronger in that disgusting way. Hong Li answered no, assuring him they didn't do that. Xiaoyong explained they used another method. He tossed a zombie core for Li Cheng to examine, explaining that mutant zombie cores also help people evolve. It wasn't as common or as easy as human flesh, but it was more effective and didn't have the terrible side effects. Xiaoyong explained that those who followed the human flesh method became more violent, lost control of their emotions, and developed murderous impulses. Li Cheng admitted it was true because he had been feeling those symptoms. Xiaoyong warned that there was no full reversal, because once someone started, they'd be affected for life, but if he stopped now, the symptoms could improve. Then Xiaoyong turned to Shangzhe asking if they could talk. Shangzhe, still struggling to speak, thanked Xiaoyong for saving his son, managing only a few words with effort. Xiaoyong understood what he meant and responded without any problem. He explained to the others that Shangzhe, like Cheng, could still communicate in a primitive way, keeping his memories intact, but his physical state was now terrifying. Even so, Shenzhe assured him he'd be fine, saying there was no need to worry about his son because he was safe. Xiaoyang asked if he wanted to stay there since he was used to that place. Shengzhe confirmed, praising Xiaoyang for being very smart and understanding everything quickly. Xiaoyang then turned to Li Cheng and said that now that all the threats had been eliminated, he'd have to take care of the rest of the survivors in the steel mill. But Li Cheng confessed he no longer trusted himself. He had eaten human flesh and was afraid he might lose control at any moment. Xiaoyang reflected on that, saying they might even recruit those people in the future, but they'd need to talk with the group first. For now, he said Li Cheng would come back with him to the base, assuring him he'd keep an eye on him in case he transformed or lost control, telling him not to worry about it. Meanwhile, on the border of City S, a horde of mutant zombies created a strange, dense fog. A group of survivors was struggling to rescue the last companion who had been left behind, but they realized there was no saving him because not only was he destroyed by the zombies, he also turned into one of them. One of the survivors was so exhausted she said she couldn't run anymore. Another insisted that if they stopped there, they'd all die. Finally, after much effort, they felt the wind on their faces and saw they had reached the border. Without wasting any time, they ran until they saw the moonlight, feeling relieved to have escaped that suffocating fog. But the calm didn't last. A carnivorous plant-like zombie attacked the group and killed one of the women. The mood grew even heavier. One of the survivors cried hard over her death, but they had to keep moving anyway. Only 4 people were left. As they kept running, they knew the mutant zombies were still chasing them. The man in front said he recognized the place. It was the park in City M. Despite feeling relieved to arrive, one of them commented that the place seemed strange and abandoned. The leader tried to justify it, saying it was probably because the city had been evacuated. Farther ahead, they saw a figure that looked like a survivor, but it was Shengzhe. The group panicked and ran away, even though Shengzhe didn't do anything to chase them. He just stood there, indifferent to their escape. One of the black-haired survivors wondered aloud why there was a plant monster outside the forest. At that moment, the horde of plant zombies appeared again, completely surrounding them. Some began to accept their own deaths. One fell to the ground crying. Another raised his gun to end his own life before being devoured. Suddenly, tentacles appeared and saved them. It was Shengzhe, showing up to finish off the horde of monsters, wiping them all out. Later, returning to the base, Xiaoyang commented that it was really windy that day. Reflecting on everything that had happened, Xiaoyang earned another 20 points for completing the Utopia mission and 60 more points for extra achievements, bringing his total to 231 points. He decided to take a look at the system's new shop. There were 3 main options: a level 2 weapons box for 20 points, a level 3 superpowered awakening box for 100 points, and a level 2 black technology box for 50 points. Chong, curious, wanted to know if there was another level 3 box. Last time he had gotten physical overload and was eager to see what would come now. Xiaoyang then bought all 3 boxes. In the level 2 weapons box, he got an armored jeep. In the superpowered awakening box, he obtained the imprisonment mark, an ability that could mark an enemy with a slavery seal, turning them into a servant, although he could only do this to one person at a time. In the black technology box, he found a plus 30 physical enhancement serum. Despite everything, Xiaoyang was more interested in the new ability. He knew he could only imprison one target at a time. For now, Chong and Sheng were stable, so he preferred to wait before deciding how to use it. At that moment, the Utopia mission updated. Now he needed to transform the base's defenses into an independent automatic security system that would work even in his absence. He also received a new mission called Pest Control. He would have to eliminate the threats of mutants mixed with plants to earn 100 reward points. He even joked to himself, thinking the system was telling him to start a vegetable garden. Soon after, someone reported over the radio that Shengzhe was returning to the base bringing something. When Shengzhe came in, people were scared since he was huge and intimidating, but they realized he was probably on Xiaoyang's side because he already had another zombie ally. Shengzhe was a bit nervous about everyone's suspicious looks, but calmed down when his wife and son appeared to greet him. He called his son and his wife marry me, which was a bit awkward. Xiaoyang found the way of speaking strange, but with the other's help, understood that he meant wife since his brain was still a little confused. After a lot of emotion and tight hugs, Sheng explained the situation to Xiaoyang in more detail. He said those creatures were appearing in the park where Shengzhe stayed. One of the survivors who had arrived with them explained they had come from S city, and that the creatures had been chasing the group from there. They were mutants that had merged with the forest. Xiaoyong realized they were the same as the creatures from his mission. The survivor also said, shaken, that some of his companions had turned into those plant-like zombies. Xiaoyong ordered Shang to reinforce the base's security and asked for volunteers to go handle the situation with him. So Xiaoyong, the first black-haired survivor, Zhang, and Shanshan got organized to depart. During the conversation, the survivor commented that those vines used to be much smaller. Xiaoyong explained that they would have to go into the forest even if no one liked the idea since it was enemy territory, but he emphasized that if they didn't cut the problem at the root, it would spread even more. Before that, though, he made it clear he had something important to do. Zhang and Shanshan needed to get stronger to deal with that kind of crisis. In the following days, they would go out hunting to improve their abilities. Later, a strange mutant with an aquatic appearance appeared, devouring a corpse. Xiaoyong didn't hesitate and sliced it in half with a precise blow. Soon after, the people from the base arrived with heavy weaponry to contain the horde, collecting many mutant zombie cores. They also found another unknown mutant that no longer wanted to hunt zombies, only human flesh. He tracked them by scent, complaining that it had been a long time since he'd eaten pure humans, though he acknowledged the survivors were very well armed, which annoyed him. Later, Xiaoyong used his system points to strengthen the group, distributing the zombie cores. After that, everyone gathered to discuss plans. He told them that in just 3 days of hunting they had gotten many cores. The first to receive them would be Hong Li and others who didn't have weapons. Hong Li protested, saying it wasn't fair. Zhang agreed, pointing out they had all fought together. Xiaoyong, however, was firm and said there would be no discussion. They would be strengthened first because they had no weapons to defend themselves, while the others could protect themselves better. He promised that when they had more cores, everyone would be equally strong. Song, one of the older members, encouraged Hong Li not to be embarrassed, reminding him he had always been a good leader and deserved it. Xiaoyong then called Shan Shan to talk in a more private spot. She, a little suspicious, wanted to know what they were going to do there. At that moment, the rest of the group couldn't hold back their curiosity and tried to listen in, while Chang made a suspicious comment, joking that maybe Xiaoyong was going to hurt her. Everyone was surprised when Xiaoyong opened the door because he had heard them trying to eavesdrop. As soon as he saw everyone gathered there, he pulled Zhang into the room and shoved him hard. In fact, Xiaoyong was giving Shanshan an injection to reinforce her preparation. Xiaoyong explained that, aside from the mutants and himself, Zhang and Shanshan were the strongest fighters in the base. Zhang admitted that was thanks to their leader. Xiaoyong decided to test Shanshan's new power against Zhang, but Zhang didn't like fighting women. Even so, Xiaoyong insisted that if Zhang didn't want to hit back, Shanshan could use all her strength because he could take it. When she slapped him, the force was so great it almost tore off his skull. Zhang was thrown far, and Chang and Kai had to catch him so he wouldn't fall even worse. Xiaoyong mentioned he had given Shanshan a physical enhancement serum, and that because of that she was now among the physically strongest. Zhang complained that he should have received the serum first, but Kai mocked him, saying Xiaoyong obviously prioritized the woman and teasing that he must be gay for that. Later, Xiaoyong organized the group to destroy the monstrous plants that had appeared in the city. With him would go Cheng, Zhang, Li Cheng, and one of the survivors who, even though he had caused part of the problem, had agreed to help. However, that man firmly refused the mission, saying he had barely escaped and didn't want to go back. Li Cheng tried to convince him, saying they were going to save his family and companions, but he replied that there was no one alive anymore. He preferred to stay at the base and work there. The other survivor who came with him was braver and decided to accompany Xiaoyong despite knowing the danger. Meanwhile, in the suburbs of City M, a bearded mutant felt his mind slowing down and told himself he needed to eat human flesh. He heard a suspicious noise but soon realized it was humans and ran in that direction. Inside a building, another group allied with him was gathered. This evolved mutant explained that he wasn't there to have fun and said he had found a base full of pure humans. He warned that the problem was they were well armed and he couldn't attack alone. The group assessed the information and decided to trust him this time. He was tasked with leading the way. One of the women in the group even suggested they could play more later before attacking, and they went back to entertaining themselves in a vulgar way before leaving for the mission. Meanwhile, the expedition group led by Xiaoyong was advancing through the forest to confront the plant monsters. The survivor who agreed to come along said his girlfriend had been killed by those creatures and that he believed there were still other survivors who could be saved. Xiaoyong organized the formation to keep the group safe. Li Cheng covered the rear, Chang and Zhang took either side, the weaker survivor was protected in the middle, and Xiaoyong led at the front. The man thanked them a lot for the help, but Xiaoyong made it clear they were there to kill the creatures and stop them from spreading. Suddenly, something wet and sticky hit Xiaoyong's face. He was annoyed trying to figure out what it was while the survivor warned him to be careful. Soon, Xiaoyong was grabbed by the neck by a carnivorous plant and was almost devoured. Even so, he didn't show any difficulty. He pulled the plant with brutal strength, ripped its organs apart, and tore out its tongue, destroying the creature's heart. The plant still tried to flee, but Xiaoyong instructed Zhang to pull it back easily. When it fell dead, it released a strange mist. Xiaoyong remarked that the smell of the mist was weird. When he turned to warn the others, he realized there was no one else around. At that moment, the survivor was also being affected in a different way. To him, it looked like the whole group had simply fallen asleep. He saw, in the middle of the forest, the figure of his girlfriend calling him desperately. He believed she was alive and ran toward her. When he got close, she drew him deeper into the forest. Meanwhile, the group of evolved mutants that had been cruelly playing was approaching the humans' base. Without any real plan, one of them was the first to attack the guards. Hong Li, hearing the sounds of fighting, stayed alert. The guards fired at the intruder, but ordinary bullets did nothing to his flesh. Even so, Hong Li managed to hit him with such a strong kick that he was sent spinning. Then the guards used AK-47 rifles, and this time the shots worked, leaving the attacker severely injured. Hong Li ordered the wounded to be taken immediately to the infirmary. The evolved mutant who had attacked without a plan was dragged back, nearly dead. A woman in a bikini asked how strong the humans at that base were. The dying attacker begged for flesh to recover but was killed by one of his companions who stomped him without hesitation to use him as food for the group. Another man, bald, asked what the plan was now. The blonde woman explained they were overcomplicating something easy. Since they were evolved humans, not zombies, they could just walk up to the base gate and try talking. Meanwhile, the brave survivor, even seeing the figure of his girlfriend, felt something was off. She kept insistently calling him deeper into the forest, faster and faster. When he finally got close, she was brutally decapitated right in front of him. In shock, he looked at Xiaoyong, who was also being affected by the mist, and asked why he had killed her. Xiaoyong was confused, asking what he was talking about. The survivor still couldn't see clearly. When the hallucinogenic mist finally lifted, he realized in horror there was no girlfriend at all. It was just a zombie trying to grab him. Xiaoyong had to slap Chang to wake him up too. When everyone regrouped, Li Cheng commented it felt like they had spent entire days asleep under the effect of that mist. Xiaoyong, still dazed, said he dreamed he was picking up his son from school. It was clear from the way Xiaoyong talked that he was just translating his direct and rough manner of explaining things. He remarked that that flower had probably released a type of hallucinogenic gas that hypnotized them. To better understand how to fight the creature, Xiaoyong began cutting it open to inspect its internal structure for a possible mutant core. During the analysis, he noticed a root sprouting from the corpse. When he pulled it from the soil, he saw it was a core, something like an organ that stored the creature's energy and nutrients. Xiaoyong decided to store the core in his inventory to study it later. He then asked Jingkai, the survivor, if he knew anything about these monstrous plants. Jingkai said he didn't know much, only that they devoured anything alive. However, he mentioned he knew a veteran, a specialist in agriculture and forest research, who might know more about these creatures. Xiaoyong wanted to know where that man was and if he was still alive. Jingkai explained that before fleeing with his group, the veteran had been hiding in a nearby base, but he wasn't sure if the man was still alive. Even so, Xiaoyong thought it was worth trying to find him and decided they would go there. Meanwhile, a woman in a bikini approached their base, pretending to be injured, stumbling and falling. The guards saw her and began debating what to do. One said they needed to record the incident before bringing her in, while another insisted they should rescue her immediately because of her condition. Noticing their hesitation, she used her body to seduce the guard, who ended up being convinced to help her. Her allies, hiding nearby, commented that she was very good at that act. The situation became embarrassing as they started making out behind a car like out-of-control teenagers. As Xiaoyong's group advanced toward the base near the forest, the environment got brighter as they approached the city. Jingkai pointed out they were almost there. Suddenly, a woman called out to them. Jingkai recognized her as Aunt Yang, and for a moment thought it was another illusion, but this time there was no mist at all. Even so, the atmosphere was tense. Aunt Yang gave orders for everyone to get ready to fight, thinking Jingkai was being held hostage. Zhang got ready to strike back, but Xiaoyong ordered everyone to stop. Arrows were fired at them but bounced harmlessly off Xiaoyang's and Zhang's chests. Xiaoyang asked everyone to calm down and assured them they weren't enemies. He approached, saying it was all right. Xingkai explained to Aunt Yang that they were outsiders who had helped him and were their saviors. She wanted to know about the others and about Xiang, but Xingkai told her that she had died, along with almost the entire group. Only a few survivors were left. The people in that survivor group seemed intimidated by Chong and Zhang, who had an imposing stance. Xiaoyang tried to reassure them and asked Chong and Zhang to say something to ease the tension. Chong awkwardly said he was ugly but kind. Zhang, showing off his muscles, added that he was muscular, even naked. Xiaoyang admitted that probably hadn't helped much. Xingkai settled things by explaining that they were saviors, and there would be no problem as long as no one attacked anyone. Aunt Yang accepted it and said she believed them. Meanwhile, Shen Shen was returning to the main base and asked Hong Li for permission to open the door to the old steelworks. The enemies were hiding behind a car, but she managed to get in before they could attack. They had already realized Shan Shan was an evolved human and were eager to capture her. Inside the base, Shan Shan went to the infirmary to check on the wounded. She explained that she had gotten an infection inhibitor from Xiaoyang and that it might work to prevent zombie transformations. But Hong Li said the wounded weren't showing typical symptoms and he suspected whoever attacked them wasn't a zombie, but an evolved human. The woman in the bikini confirmed it, saying she knew that kind of people. She explained there was a terrifying group of evolved humans and mutants even more dangerous than zombies. Hong Li wanted to know who she was. She explained she had just been rescued and had come from the west, describing those enemies as much scarier than any zombie. Hong Li concluded that, in the end, she had ended up drawing those enemies to the base. She apologized repeatedly, and the guard who had helped her tried to defend her, saying it wasn't her fault. Hong Li agreed he wouldn't blame her and said she might provide valuable information on how to fight them. She warned, however, that fighting any of them wouldn't be easy. Later, when she was alone with Hong Li, Shan Shan said she felt something strange about that woman but couldn't quite explain it. Hong Li replied that she was probably just stressed from everything she had been through and commented that when Xiaoyang returned, he'd be able to figure out what was going on. Elsewhere, Xiaoyang and the group finally arrived at the base Xingkai had mentioned, located near the forest. The place was filled with that strange mist. Zhang asked why they had chosen that particular base when there were better options. Xingkai explained the disaster in the city had been very different from other regions. Aunt Yang commented that, like it or not, that was the safest place they had found. Xingkai said that only on the 10th floor did the mist clear enough to breathe normally. Finally, they went up to meet the supposed leader of that group of survivors, Professor He, the person Xingkai said he knew and who understood more about those plant creatures. After explaining the whole situation, including the problem with zombies and mutants, Xiaoyang asked Chong and Zhang to come in with him. Although they were imposing, the base's residents didn't seem scared of them. Xiaoyang got straight to the point, explaining why they had come and showing the core he had taken from the creature. He asked Professor He exactly what it was. Professor He examined it and explained that it was a tuber from the plant creatures. Technically, he said it was even edible. Aunt Yang and the others were already harvesting those tubers to eat, and Xiaoyang said he knew what they were. Professor He explained they had only discovered them recently and were still studying them. In fact, they were an excellent survival food source, very nutritious and easy to store. Suddenly, one of the guards came in reporting an emergency. The plant creatures were surrounding the building. There were many of them, especially the versions with flowers, which were more dangerous. Professor He became serious and explained that the creature called Flower was the most threatening of them all. He said that if they couldn't deal with it, everyone there could die. Professor He quickly organized the group. He ordered everyone who couldn't fight to go up to the higher floors, while those who could had to stay and fight together. To him, it was better to die fighting than do nothing. When he suggested that Xingkai go up too since he was too young to die, Xingkai replied that he was actually curious to see what those creatures looked like up close. He wanted to know what kind of monster had everyone so scared. Professor He explained that they had to eliminate the flower monster before anything else because it could control the entire horde of plants like a true leader. It was essential to take it down first to stop it from commanding the others. Xiaoyang didn't waste time. He opened the window and grabbed his AK to test if the creatures really became tougher near the flower. On the first shot, he noticed their rapid regeneration as if they hadn't been hit at all. It took an entire magazine of bullets just to kill one of them. Xiaoyang commented that using a whole magazine to bring down just one creature was really worrying. He now understood why Professor He was so desperate. Even so, he said it wouldn't be a problem. He pulled out several boxes of Molotov cocktails from his inventory and said those would be enough to deal with the ones that got away. Professor, he tried to understand what he meant, but it was already too late. Xiaoyong had jumped out the window from the 16th floor, followed by Chang and Zhang. They landed without taking any damage. As soon as they hit the ground, the first plant monsters had their heads ripped off like toys. Xiaoyong and his allies were relentless. The base's survivors, including Professor He and Li Cheng, were stunned to see their strength. Li Cheng quickly shouted at everyone to stop standing around and help kill the rest. He instructed those with good aim to keep throwing Molotovs to burn the plants. This motivated the others, who advanced to attack with the firebombs. The fire proved extremely effective against the creatures, which burned easily. Later, after annihilating the horde of plant monsters, Xiaoyong ordered Chang and Zhang to check if each dead creature had any mutant core. He himself decided to inspect the so-called flower monster. Using the Molotovs made the fight much simpler, since fire was the plant's greatest weakness. Eventually, they found the flower creature, a grotesque mass of roots, tubers, and human body parts, with a large flower on top. This creature was the main core that commanded the entire forest and released that dangerous mist. When it sensed Xiaoyong approaching, it reacted by trying to attack him with its vines. He acknowledged it was indeed a powerful opponent but trusted his own strength. Even when bound by the vines, he pulled them back toward himself with all his might. When attacked by the poisonous mist or pollen, Xiaoyong held his breath and kept dragging the creature. He pulled so hard that the flower was forced to release him to avoid being destroyed. Taking advantage of the opening, Xiaoyong used his Mark of Imprisonment ability. He marked the flower right at the top, releasing a great dark energy that covered not only the creature but the entire surrounding area. The survivors watched in disbelief as the huge flower appeared in front of the building without showing any aggression. Xiaoyong returned and told them they didn't need to worry about it anymore. He asked Zhang and Chang if they had found cores in the other monsters. Zhang said they hadn't found many, while Chang said they got a few, enough for analysis. Professor, he wanted to know what had happened to the flower. Xiaoyong explained that it was now an ally, which surprised everyone. When they approached, they saw that the flower no longer attacked anyone. Xiaoyong said they could touch it without any problem. Professor He, curious, asked how he had done that, but Xiaoyong deflected, saying it wasn't important. Instead, he asked Professor He what that creature was made of since he knew botany. Professor He explained that despite the severe mutations and fusion with human remains, the creature still retained many traits of a common plant. He said that just like animals compete in a food chain, plants also fight brutally. They compete for sunlight, soil nutrients, and space. He said that at the top of the chain were the most aggressive parasites, capable of sucking up all resources around them and preventing any other plant from growing. His guess was that this extremely aggressive flower had benefited during the mutation by absorbing all available nutrients, killing other plants, and even preventing animal life in the forest. While he explained, the flower creature slowly stretched its tendrils toward Xiaoyong, shocking the others who feared another attack. But Xiaoyong calmly said there was no more danger, reassuring the group. In reality, what happened was that the mutant flower inserted one of its tendrils into Xiaoyong's neck, sending something directly to his brain. At that moment, Xiaoyong confirmed to the professor that his guess was correct. There had been a great battle between the mutant plants in the city. The defeated plants fled the forest and turned into zombies, starting to devour humans and other zombies to survive, since the flower had stolen all the nutrients. Now that this flower was his servant, Xiaoyong took responsibility. He asked the flower to show him its core, and this core fused with his body. Li Cheng found it strange and wanted to know what was going on, so Xiaoyong explained he was going through a symbiosis process with the plant. Next, he tested his new abilities and managed to launch extremely powerful vines, even stronger than the tentacles he had before, which made him a bit jealous. Soon after, the system recognized the feat and unlocked a new achievement for him called Gardener, granting 150 points and leaving him with 503 in total. Meanwhile, at Zhao's steel mill base, a little girl finished killing her last victim. Another target fell into the trap. A guard who had been hitting on her showed up in the middle of the night to bring her a snack. To thank him, she jumped on him, but took care not to do anything where others might hear. She led the man to a suspicious, isolated place with no one around. There he noticed something strange, the jacket of another guard who had gone missing, containing his remains. Soon, the new guard became the next victim. Elsewhere in the base, the group of the Vald were waking up Barbachinha, who was sleeping in the middle of the mission. A woman commented that it was fine because Karika had nearly beaten the poor guy. They decided it was time to act. When they reached the dumpster where the remains of the 2 guards killed by the infiltrated mutant were, they found nothing useful to eat. So Caraquina pressured another woman in the group to try infiltrating. She pretended to be a helpless survivor, saying she had seen a base and was trying to live, and the guards thought they were in luck. But soon her friend, wearing only a bikini, exposed the ruse and warned that she was a disguised mutant. Immediately, the traitor was shot multiple times. Wounded, she returned to the group of mutants begging for help, just like another who had been killed. But Kareka considered her useless, and when he tried to smash her with a huge rock, he was the one who ended up dead. Barbichinha cut off Kareka's head but demanded his reward. He asked for an arm and a leg to completely heal the infiltrator. She thought about deceiving him, knowing he wasn't so innocent. Meanwhile, at the base, they noticed 2 more guards had gone missing. Hongli asked if another guard had simply disappeared, and Shanshan decided to investigate. She found a trash can with their remains. One of the guards recognized the clothes. Realizing the bikini girl had tried to hide the bones and flesh, but animals had dug them up and spread the evidence. Shanshan concluded there was no sign of external invasion and that the enemy was inside the base. She stared at the new girl and asked if she wanted to say anything. The infiltrator asked why Shanshan was looking at her that way, but Shanshan didn't hesitate and threw a knife at her, ready to fight. The mutant, realizing she was exposed, took another guard hostage. Shanshan warned that if she killed the hostage, she wouldn't get out alive. The infiltrator mocked her, saying a little girl with short hair couldn't challenge her. The situation grew tense, but she managed to escape with the hostage. Before releasing him, she shot him in the leg to buy time. Even though she was wounded by a shot from Shanshan that hit her in the back, the mutant managed to get away. Shanshan wanted to take the motorcycle to chase her, but Hongli warned her about the danger of not knowing how many allies the enemy had. Shanshan agreed it would be risky. For now, she decided that the bitten survivors would be kept in quarantine, leaving that task to Hongli. She, Grandpa Sheng, and Zheng would handle the situation. Hongli noticed that Shanshan had become much more mature and decisive lately, which he thought was great. Meanwhile, the task force was fighting the army of plant monsters. Xiao Yong, now with his new tentacles, was much more powerful. To finish off those creatures once and for all, the group brought gasoline cans and burned everything. Professor He and the other survivors were very impressed with Xiaoyong's group's power. After the battle, Xiaoyong completed his mission and earned another 50 points in the system, bringing his total to 93 points. They didn't return to the steel mill base but instead went to the main base. This happened because Xiaoyong had recruited other survivors who were near the forest. As soon as they arrived, Voing was the first to tell Xiaoyong what had happened at the steel mill. He explained that Shanshan was handling that mission, but Sheng asked who the new people were who had come along. Xiaoyong replied that they were survivors from City S, and soon the elders introduced themselves to each other, creating a friendly atmosphere that suggested they would get along well in the future. Even so, Xiaoyong explained that they would only stay there temporarily. His plan was to take Professor He and the others back to the forest edge to set up a third base in that location, because he wanted to expand his area of influence. At that moment, Shanshan arrived on her motorcycle asking if Xiaoyong and the others had already returned. She told them everything that had happened and warned them not to trust the new recruits too much. Professor, he asked if that applied to them as well, but Xiaoyong explained that he already knew that group well and didn't really consider them new. He also brought good news. He had received a new mission from the system, called Villain Nemesis, Volume 4, with a reward of 120 points. He was determined to complete this task with all his effort. Meanwhile, the bikini girl who had been shot during her escape was trying to regenerate. The other, Evolved, eventually found her. A blonde girl asked if she had had trouble with the new allies, but the redhead replied that it was all a misunderstanding because she had another plan in mind. The blonde, suspicious, asked if that plan was to kill them. The redhead made it clear that she saw them all as the same, including Kareka, whom they had already eliminated, and warned that she would soon get rid of all of them. However, she didn't realize that Barbichinha was nearby and ended up being stabbed in the back by him. Barbichinha mocked her for being so outraged by the betrayal, saying she had deserved it for a long time. The blonde commented that since they were both wounded, he should kill her so she could transfer leadership to him. But Barbichinha replied that he was tired of people like them, who always blamed others, saying they needed to unite and that he had the perfect idea for that unity, using her flesh. He cut off the blonde's head and ordered the redhead to take enough pieces of the body to heal her own wounds, keeping the rest for himself. Meanwhile, Xiaoyong was sending a report to Li Cheng explaining everything that had happened. He told him that a redhead had infiltrated the steel mill base but turned out to be a cannibal. Xiaoyong asked if Li Cheng knew that type of person. Li Cheng replied that he didn't know much about that specific group but had lived among cannibals before. He explained that cannibalism gradually removed people's mental restraints, leaving them increasingly insane and unable to control their emotions. Xiaoyong concluded that they were extremely dangerous people and that they would need to deal with them before they became an even bigger problem. He then instructed Li Cheng to stay at the steel mill, guard the place, and notify him immediately over the radio if he saw anything suspicious. 2 months passed since that incident. Somewhere else, a group of survivors was trying to escape from City S. They were very afraid of crossing the forest, but it was the only path. They gathered food, medicine, and essentials before leaving. Despite their fear, they had no choice and entered the woods. The worst happened when a horde of plant zombies started chasing them. They ran for a long time until they reached a more open part of the forest. There, they were surprised to see trees being cut down not by creatures, but by a group of people with chainsaws and helmets, acting as if it was the most normal thing in the world. The survivors recognized Shinkai in the group and asked about the situation. Shinkai explained that they were living in City M now and asked why they had taken so long. Before they could answer, a zombie appeared, and the survivors explained that it was because of those creatures that they had been delayed. Shinkai downplayed the danger, saying it was just a bunch of plants, even when the survivors said half their group had died because of them. He radioed in that a small horde was approaching the forest and instructed the group to wait for the squad that was already on the way. The survivors were curious about this squad. Soon they saw a group approaching with flamethrowers, realizing it was a plant extermination squad. They were impressed to see the squad take down the creatures so efficiently. Li Cheng commented that it wasn't even worth lifting a finger against those monsters now that they knew how to handle them. The survivors asked how strong they had become in that time. Shinkai said that much of the group's evolution was thanks to Chief Xiaoyong. One of the survivors got even more scared when he saw the mutant zombies, but Shinkai explained that those also belonged to their group and promised to take them to meet Chief Xiaoyong. They headed to the forest base, which in 2 months had developed a lot. There were buildings going up everywhere, a giant vegetable garden, and an overall much more organized structure than the survivors expected. When Shinkai showed them the tubers they were eating, one of the survivors was so disgusted he threw it away. Shinkai explained that those were indeed parts of the plant creatures, but that they were edible organs and extremely nutritious. They used these parts of the plant creatures as the foundation of their diet in the new survivor base in City M. Everything was so well organized that they finally reached the point of meeting the famous Chief Xiaoyong. At that moment, Professor He was very proud of the results of his research. He had never imagined anything like it in his entire life. He was convinced it was perfect for starting a large-scale farm, making full use of the mutant plant's nutritious organs. Xiaoyong was pleased to hear that. He said everything was going well and that the base's security was excellent. The plant creatures were no longer a real threat. Now that City M's base was ready and well supplied, he said it was definitely time to deal with the cannibals, so they headed to the outskirts of the city, the suburbs. As soon as they started walking through those alleys, Chong felt a strong presence nearby. Xiaoyong noticed it too, realizing it was powerful enough to take on even Zhang's team. Chong understood the signal, and together they decided the only option was to eliminate the threat. 2 cannibals had been watching them the whole time. The red-haired woman wanted to attack immediately, saying it was the perfect opportunity, but the man held her back, warning that it was too late because they were already targets of other people. Suddenly, a large group of cannibals who seemed to belong to an organized faction appeared before Xiaoyong and Chong. They were saying grotesque and disturbing things like psychopaths eager to taste their flesh. Even Chong, used to horrors, felt uncomfortable with the threats. The red-haired woman insisted on attacking to steal the prey, but her partner preferred to watch from a distance and wait for a better opportunity. The next moment, though, when they looked back, Xiaoyong and Chong were already massacring all the cannibals in the faction. The few who survived fled in terror, wondering what kind of monsters they were. One cannibal tried to escape by climbing a building but ended up going straight toward the 2 of them. Without effort, Xiaoyong grabbed a huge metal beam and threw it at him, cutting him in half. The beam went through the building wall and blood splashed on the faces of the watching cannibals, leaving them all terrified. Xiaoyong told Chong he could go ahead and eat the bodies, since they probably had very powerful cores. Barbachinha, who was watching everything, was horrified. The redhead asked if they had already left, and the other replied yes, that it was time to get out. Even so, the upside for them was that they had managed to get meat to eat. They planned to carry the bodies with Chong, who admitted he'd lost his appetite lately, managing to eat only 3 corpses. Chong explained that his stomach wasn't that big. While they were packing everything up, Xiaoyong noticed someone hiding behind a wall in the alley. suddenly, he drew his blade, and the panicked survivor threatened to shoot if he took another step. Xiaoyong tried to speak calmly, but the man reacted, thinking he was a threat. When he fired, Xiaoyong simply caught the arrow in midair, nearly giving the man a heart attack. Without hesitating, he took the crossbow from him and told the other survivors to come out from where they were hiding, making it clear he wasn't one of the cannibals. After explaining the whole situation to them, they continued on with Xiaoyong and Chong. Along the way, Xiaoyong asked why they were there and where they were heading. One of the survivors, who wore glasses, said they were trying to reach a steel mill to the south of the suburbs called Shaifen. He said they used to receive radio transmissions claiming it was a safe base. But with so many cannibals in the city, they could barely move without risking death at every corner. Xiaoyong asked if he thought there was any place safer than that steel mill. The man with glasses replied yes, saying there was a community to the north that hunted and eliminated cannibals. He wanted to join that group because their leader was very powerful, able to fight alone against 5 or 6 cannibals at once. But Xiaoyong pointed out that there were hundreds of cannibals in the city and questioned whether that leader was really strong enough to handle them all. One of the survivors said cannibals rarely gathered in large groups, usually acting alone. But another disagreed, saying there were indeed factions. The first argued back, explaining that in practice cannibals tended to act individually, but groups survived longer and so appeared more often. He got irritated with the rest of the group, insisting they needed to go somewhere safe because they couldn't fight cannibals on their own. Xiaoyong then gave the man with glasses some very bad news. He explained that the leaders of the steel mill they were heading to were actually cannibals. It was a shock to everyone. Xiaoyong tried to reassure them, saying they were already dead because he had eliminated them himself. He also asked the man with the bowl haircut if he was looking for his brother. The survivor confirmed, saying his brother's name was Li Chung and that he was an officer at that steel mill. Xiaoyong said that Li Chung was alive and well, bringing relief to the group. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.